This is the best.
Do you hear me?
Of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And we welcome you to another day. How are you on this Thursday? A lot to do today. We'll keep up with, obviously, all the things that are going on, including the Masters, in case you haven't heard. We welcome you back after a couple of, well, nobody's been off for a couple of days other than one of our compatriots, but we'll bring him in just a moment. But before we do that, why don't we get to some headlines? The ESPN Football Power Index is out. And guess who's at the top? How about them Georgia Bulldogs? Sorry, Nick Saban. This looks at the schedule, and the schedule is ridiculously easy. Austin Peay, that's a slam dunk. South Carolina, I've been talking about that game as maybe being a difficult game. Well, it would rank among the most difficult games on the season, and the Bulldogs are given a 79% chance. At Missouri, it's 78%. Tennessee, 94%. At LSU, 77%. Florida, 79%. At Kentucky, 90%. Auburn at 67% is the toughest game on the schedule, followed behind, obviously, LSU, Missouri, and South Carolina. The schedule is ridiculously easy if you look at the Power Index. What about Bama? They're pretty heavy favorite in every game as well. So you look at it, Louisville, that's an 87%. At Arkansas, 89%. At Tennessee, 89%. At LSU, 78%. Mississippi State, 79%. Auburn is the most difficult game on the schedule. It is at home, and that is a 67%. So statistically, Georgia a little more of a favorite probably because of the schedule, but statistically, though, it's pretty much a dead heat. Meanwhile, Alabama changes title of barbershop show, releases new video. It was Shop Talk. Now it's Bama Cuts. Is this because of LeBron James? Yep, bet it is. So who won that battle? Was it Saban, as many people suspected, or did LeBron end up having his way? We shall find out. Meanwhile, down in Bama, beset by injuries, Auburn remains a mystery this spring. Auburn's spring game is this weekend, and we will talk to Gus Malzahn on Friday. Meanwhile, Ohio State has rewarded Urban Meyer. Well, he's done well. Hasn't won a championship since 2014, but still, he will make $7.6 million this season. That is a raise. His athletic director, remember Gene Smith, he said this a few months ago that Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban's salaries are ridiculous. And now the same man who said they are ridiculous is giving his man a $7.6 million pay increase. Remember Gene Smith at the time said, I don't even put A&M in our sphere because I'm considering Urban Meyer's situation with 3 years left on his contract. So Gene Smith obviously talking out of both sides of his mouth. Anyway, welcome to the show. We are going to take your phone calls at 855-242-7285. People always say, how do you get in? You call early, and we will get you on as quickly as possible. Who will we speak with tonight? Brad Edwards on the SEC FPI. Booger McFarland. We'll get his talk on the upcoming college football season. He's also watching a lot of golf today, as is Steve Spurrier, the ambassador. He'll join us later in the program.
Quiet, please. This is your A-Block call segment. On the phone from Morris, Alabama, Brandon Rogers.
And we welcome Brandon to the program.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction.
Thank you, Brandon. Welcome to the show, my good friend.
Couple of topics, if you don't mind. Really quick, the two assistants that Alabama hired during the offseason, I wanted to get your thoughts on them. One of them was from Texas Tech, and one of them was from Penn State. Do you think that, I guess in the back of my mind, I'm wondering their experience levels, number one?
Well, I tell you why Saban brought them in. He was looking to shake things up. And I know this sounds crazy after coming off of a national championship season, but Nick Saban felt like some of his recruiters were getting stale. He was losing a couple of players normally that would have gone to Alabama, so he brought these two gentlemen in. And I'm not in Tuscaloosa, as you well know, but the people that are in Tuscaloosa and with whom I have spoken believe that things are different in T-Town right now.
Yeah, that's what I was reading on a SI article. And also, I think the guy from Penn State is supposed to be quoted as a really good recruiter. Is that right?
Yes. I think both had everything to do with recruiting, and that's where Saban starts and finishes when it comes to and again, that shows you Brandon, thanks for the call, but shows you the genius of Nick Saban when he's unhappy after winning a national championship because he felt like his program may have slipped ever so much in recruiting. Again, the phone number here is 855-242-7285, and we realize it's a busy day for everyone, so thanks for listening and watching. We'll continue with more calls, and Joe is next.
Good afternoon, Paul. How y'all doing today? Well, in the words of Larry, I'll go ahead and say dilly dilly, but there's a couple of questions I would like to discuss with you. One of them is, I don't know if it's too early to tell, but who do you see starting off as Alabama's starting quarterback this year? And I could kind of see a two-quarterback system working initially, but I think, both quarterbacks need to stay. And Nick Saban, if he, right now he's tied with Barry Bryant. If he wins one more championship at Alabama, he'll be tied with him at Alabama. And if he wins one more after that, I think you would have to pretty well consider him the greatest coach of all time after that one. I mean, I don't think there would even be a question about that if he does that. And I'd like to know your opinion on that. And for John Hayes, I'd like to say dilly, 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 John.
Well, yeah. Listen, I don't think Bear Bryant's really the issue. I think Nick Saban's already retired the trophy, and I think you could say he did it 2 years ago. You can say he did it this year. I think the second that game was over in Atlanta, my feeling was that he had passed Bear Bryant, so he doesn't need to do anything else to equal or better Bear Bryant. Even though the records are tied, I think that's an inane conversation, quite frankly. It's over in that regard. RJ is up next. RJ, welcome to the show.
Hey, Paul Finebaum, how you doing today?
We are doing very well, thank you.
It's been a while since I talked to you, sir. But listen, I want to know, we have had our Jonathan Allen, we had Mika Fitzpatrick, and we have also had our Reggie Raglins. Who do you see dominating the defense on Alabama this year, Paul?
I think it could be any number of players, RJ. The one thing that I think is so interesting about what Nick Saban does is that he rotates so much, and I think you would agree with me on that. That I think it's often not. I mean, last year you knew Minka Fitzpatrick was going to be the star of that unit, but I don't think it's always as easy to figure out.
Okay, I was looking kind of like at what's his name, Moses.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Every year, Saban brings in a new group of players, and I think we could go with the preseason All-SEC and preseason All-American and those who are projected to be drafted. But I don't think it's the easiest thing in the world to project. I mean, I think maybe Nick Saban could probably tell you who he sees on the practice field, and that's a subject that we will certainly get into more in the coming days because we are 2 weeks away from Alabama spring game. I know we focus most of the attention on the quarterback battle, but I do think the defense is going to be something to watch, especially when you combine the massive amount of players that have gone to the NFL on that side of the ball in the last couple of years. We will take a break. More of your phone calls at 855-242-7285. We are coming right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back, John Hayes. We haven't seen John in a couple of days, so it's good to have him back. It's good to have all of you back, and we look forward to hearing from you. You can give us a ring. Watching golf, we don't mind talking about that. football, we don't mind talking about that either. The phone number we need you to call, though, is 855-242-7285. Really good time to get in, and we'll be happy to talk to you. Jeremy is up next in Knoxville. Jeremy, go right ahead.
Yes, I was just calling in. Basically, maybe get you guys' assessment as of mine. The way I kind of have been assessing the team as far as not so much as what Pruitt brought in this year, which was pretty impressive, I thought, with not even having the entire coaching staff put together yet. I think that, I think Tennessee has a chance to shock a couple teams.
Yeah, listen, Jeremy, I want to stop you right there, and I understand when we do a show that involves as many fan bases as we have here, fans, especially in April, are upbeat and optimistic. But I have to call you on this thing you just said. Give me some explanations. Give me a couple of reasons why we should believe Tennessee will shock anyone this year based on what we've seen in the past.
But basically, I think, we were only playing with one scholarship offensive lineman the last 3 games of the year, I believe. You're returning almost every one of those.
Okay. So against which schools do you expect Tennessee to be shocking someone?
I think, maybe South Carolina, they could pull off a win.
That would be shocking to beat South Carolina? I mean, I realize
we went 0-8 last year, so,
okay.
What I'm saying is Jones is a good recruiter. I think utilizing his assets on the field.
But again, I know I'm sounding like a professor here, but you got rid of a coach who had 8 or 9 or 10 years head coaching experience. Not all that great, but still experience. You have a coach now that's never been a head coach, and you're expecting him to shock people. I would just like to know why.
Like I said, I think Jones, whether you think the players or not, he did have some 4- and 5-star 5-star players there. But you know what I'm saying. I think you have that coming back. Only thing I'm worried about, you're learning under a new scheme, new defensive scheme, new offensive scheme. And I think he brought the quarterback in from Stanford, maybe to get Garantano in the film room more. I think if he can do that, he's got the receivers bringing back Juwan Jennings on the outside, Callaway on the other.
Okay, so give me Jeremy, give me a record for the end of the year.
I say 7-5. And I think that a lot of Tennessee fans will be happy with that.
Okay.
I've heard some analysts saying 2 years, and that they think Tennessee would, there's a good chance they will be back in the even mentioned in the playoffs. So,
well, Jeremy, the only way that can happen is if Tennessee recruits at an elite level, and I'm not talking about top 10, I'm talking about top 2 or 3, because to get ahead of where Georgia is now, and I think you know where they are, Tennessee is just going to have to be superhuman.
Well, the way I look at it, too, Pruitt has, I think they made a great hire with him. He's coached under Fisher, under Sweeney, and under Saban. You mix all that together, and he's proven winner everywhere he's went. Total defensive yardage allowed, except for 1 year, I think it was like 12, an average of 12.
But Jeremy, I have to run here, but I have to stop you though, and I realize that everyone likes to get drunk on their own team, but you have to be realistic here. And for a Tennessee program that was terrible last year, to get ahead of other people in front of them, they have to do a lot of extraordinary things. And it doesn't matter what Jeremy, and I'm a fan of his, but it doesn't matter what he did elsewhere. And that's my main point to you. Doesn't matter what he did as a coordinator, Florida State or Georgia or Alabama or anywhere else. And that was always the frustration with Butch Jones. He had to have 3 or 4 great recruiting classes And he frankly did, and he still couldn't get over the hump. So call in, be optimistic, but I will also try to ask you to be realistic when you're explaining why you think your team is going to be better than someone else. Thanks for the call. Rustin is up next in Starkville. You're on the air. Go right ahead.
Yes, Paul, this is Rustin, but I'd like to, what do you think Ohio State's going to do this year?
State, I think they're really going to be good. I think they'll. I think State right now is a contender to be second in the SEC West.
Yeah, I think. Well, really, we got probably one of the best defensive line in the SEC with Montez Sweat, Chauncey Rivers, and Jeffrey Simmons back. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's a big key to the success. And I will say, Rustin, thank you for the call. Of all the new coaches, the person with the easiest task, and I know easy is an easy word to throw around, is Joe Moorhead. He has the best team. I mean, Chad Morris inherited a mess. Jeremy Pruitt, similar. Jimbo Fisher, not a great team, but not one that is in total disarray. So that is really his advantage. Anyway, let's continue with more phone calls. And Peyton in College Station, you're on the air. Go right ahead.
Hey, Paul, and I know you just said College Station, so you already know what team I'm talking about.
You bet.
We're all really excited about Jimbo coming down, at least all the guys that I've talked to. You know, there's a much different culture, and when you listen to him talk, he can actually talk football. You know, we're going through the spring interviews. It seemed like Kevin Sumlin would keep his cards close, and, you know, he wouldn't let anybody know what was going on in the program. But to be honest, now it just seems like he didn't know either, so that's why he didn't say anything. Jimbo really knows the game, and I feel like, you know, we might be a lot better than people think, a lot sooner than people think we'll do it.
Well, listen, I think you're right about that, and that's why I differ on A&M versus maybe Tennessee, because it's not so much the difference in the coaches, although Jimbo Fisher is a much more accomplished coach than Jeremy Pruitt, except, you know, he has a program there that's not that bad off. I mean, they were competitive last year before Kevin Sumlin got the axe. This is a program that needs retooling and maybe some more discipline, but is still a pretty good program.
Right. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to, you know, go 12-0 or anything, but we're not going to have any 59-0 losses like we did a couple years ago at Alabama. That's not going to happen. We're going to compete in every game we play, and that's what we're excited for. You know, everybody's always talking about 8-4, you know.
I hear you. Hey, thank you very much for the call. I do appreciate it. Let's go to DeVaro in New Jersey. Go right ahead.
Paul, what's up?
How are you, buddy?
How's it going? Why do you hate ribs?
Why do I hate what?
Ribs, like
ribs?
The food. Like, yeah, ribs, like barbecue ribs. Why do you hate ribs?
You know, it's not a matter of hating them. I just have never eaten them.
You've never eaten ribs? How?
Probably not since I was a kid. No.
You got to eat ribs, man.
And for what reason?
I mean, what reason not to?
Oh, wow. That's a good question.
It's a great question.
You know, I've gone okay in life. I mean, I'm not a rich man, but I have good health. So I'm just going to keep rolling the dice on my anti-ribs campaign.
You've got to eat some ribs, my guy.
Okay. I'm all over it. Wow. What a call. What a day. What a life. Will is in Birmingham. Will, welcome to our program. Thanks for the call.
Hey, Paul, very long time listener, man. First time caller. I've been trying to call you for a long time, but it was kind of tough, and today I actually got through.
I'm glad you did. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, I love your show, man. I love your show. But I just wanted to ask you about Auburn, man. I'm a big Auburn fan, and I want to get your realistic answer. Do you think Auburn can go all the way this year? Because I'm thinking they can, man, because the end of last year, you know, they proved, you know, that they were a good team, and of course, they got to the SEC championship and stumbled a little bit, but they beat Alabama pretty handily. They beat Georgia pretty handily. They beat a bunch of other teams pretty handily. Do you think that momentum will carry over with a lot of the guys coming back? And do you think they can, actually make the playoffs this year? And I hang up and listen to you, man, and I'll definitely be calling again.
Thank you very much. Listen, I don't think it's impossible, because I think Auburn will have a really good team coming back, especially led by Stidham. But I would not make them one of my picks to go to the playoffs. I really wouldn't. Thanks for the call. Really do appreciate it. We're up against a break, and a lot more to do. Brad Edwards will join us talking about his FPI projections and more of your phone calls at 855-242-7285.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
I'm a one-trick pony. Literally. I show up at kids' parties and act cute. That's pretty much it. So excuse me for being bitter when Geico says not only could we save you money on car insurance, but we do more. Like give you 24/7 access online, over the phone, or even via our award-winning mobile app. Well, ooh la la. Aren't they multi-talented? Hey, I said organic carrots.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Welcome back to the program. We were talking about the FPI, and before we get too deep into the story, we are going to welcome in Brad Edwards. Brad, thank you for coming on today. And before people get carried away with the headline here, explain exactly what this is.
Paul, the math is very complicated, but let's forget about that and just focus on what it's looking at, because FBI is looking at the same things that we all talk about all offseason, the things we use to determine which teams are going to be good. We're looking at not only how good was a team last year, but how good have they been, how consistent have they been over the last 4 years, because I'm more likely to trust a team that's been good for all four than one just that rose up and played really well for one season a year ago. And so that's the first thing it's looking at. The second thing is returning starters, which is a staple for all of us. How good are they going to be? Well, how many starters they have back? And if the quarterback is one of your returning starters, FPI gives a little bit of a bonus for that. The quarterback counts as more than one returning starter. Is the coach back? If you were good and your coach is still there, then there is that stability that you're looking for. If you're good like UCF was a year ago and your coach leaves, you're going to take a hit for that. And then the fourth thing is recruiting. It's a very, very minor factor, but we do look at the last four recruiting classes because our observation has been that if you have a lot of 4 and 5 stars out there, then you have quality depth, guys who were probably in the rotation, and even though they might be a first-year starter, they actually have played a lot of snaps up to this point, so you might have more experience than another team that returns the same number of starters. That's what goes into all this.
Okay, so Georgia has a slight edge over Alabama. You've probably answered the question somewhat in your previous answer, but should people read much into that, or is it just simply a matter of schedule?
Yeah, Georgia has a slight edge in terms of chance to win the SEC. FBI would tell you that if those teams played, let's just say the season opener, on a neutral field, Alabama should be a slight favorite. FBI thinks Alabama is just a tiny bit better than Georgia. The reason Georgia's favored to win the SEC is because, very clearly, to win the conference championship game, you have to get there first. And Georgia's path coming through the East to get into that game is easier than Alabama's. Georgia's chance to win the division, I think, is like 75% compared to somewhere around 63% for Alabama to win the West. That's why Georgia's considered the SEC favorite, not because FPI thinks that Georgia would beat Alabama on a neutral field. It's more like that Georgia's more likely to be there in that game than Alabama is. Not by a lot, but just because Alabama has a few more games that are conceivably losable along the way.
But we looked at both Alabama and Georgia's schedule, and you have to look pretty hard, Brad, to find losable games, don't you?
You do. And sometimes, Paul, we make the mistake of looking at teams before the season starts, and we just assume if they're really good, they aren't going to lose at home. But we've seen Alabama national championship teams in recent years that lost at home to Ole Miss, at home to Texas A&M. Actually, the two teams that lost to Ole Miss didn't win the national championship, but they made the playoff. But we saw them lose to A&M, lose to LSU at home, go on to win the national title. So maybe we shouldn't take for granted the home games for Alabama. But when we get in that mode and we're just assuming home wins, you look at the road schedule. I mean, really, LSU is the one that's kind of scariest to you based on what you think you know about these teams. And that's really based on history. As you've probably seen in this, Paul, FPI is not big on LSU this year at all. In fact, since Les Miles took over in 2005, this is only the second time that LSU has been ranked outside of the preseason top 12 by FPI. It's the first time that they've not been in the preseason top 25. They're sitting just out of it at number 26, and they have a brutal schedule. I'm not saying that affects what will happen in a one-game situation against Alabama.
Yeah, Brady,
but LSU is an underdog in 7 games by FPI.
Yeah, let's take a look at the schedule because I mean you can draw a lot of conclusions with a headline, but some of these are pretty close. But this is not a good look for Ed Orgeron's team. In terms of, I'm going to go through it, and I don't know if I have the percentage here, but of these games, I'll give you the tough games. I'm pretty sure they're underdogs in all of them. Miami, Auburn, at Florida, Georgia State, Alabama, A&M. I mean, your best recollection, because I don't have your numbers.
No, and that's what you're looking at, and then you've got others like at Arkansas. Even though we're expecting Arkansas to be down, that's not one that would surprise me if LSU were to lose it. And you see it right there, the 5th toughest schedule in the nation, and 6-6 is what we're looking at as a projected record for LSU, that's inconceivable based on what LSU has been for pretty much this century. And so if it were to play out that way, and that's just a projection, it's based on all the simulations that are run. The majority of times it ends up in that area, 6-6. That's not to say that they're not capable of being 2 or 3 wins better than that, or 2 or 3 wins worse. I don't know that it could necessarily go that far down, considering some of the games are on there that they absolutely should win. But after what happened last year against Troy, are you going to take very many games for granted on that schedule? I think LSU has a lot to prove.
No doubt. So Auburn would be next, and then was it Florida and Mississippi State? Is that right?
Yeah, in terms of the SEC.
Right.
Yeah, so Auburn's sitting there at number 7. So Alabama's 2 nationally, Georgia's 3. Auburn is 7. And because Washington, who Auburn opens the season against, is number 6, Auburn has 3 opponents that are ranked in the top 6. And even though they don't sit up there in the overall schedule strength department, there are 3 matchups of top 7 teams based on the preseason FPI, and Auburn is playing in all 3 of those games. So it gives you an idea of what type of impact Auburn's likely to have on the playoff race, even if they're not in it. To get into the playoff, at least one team, the SEC champion, and maybe 2 if Washington comes out of the Pac-12, will probably have to come through Auburn to get there. Same thing is true with Ohio State in the Big Ten. Actually, what FPI tells us are the 6 most significant games of the college football season. Auburn plays in 3 of them. Ohio State plays in the other 3, which are their games at Penn State, at Michigan State, and then home against Michigan. So those 2 teams, Auburn and Ohio State, are going to have a lot to say about who ends up in the playoff.
Kind of business as usual. Last year, Auburn had Clemson, Alabama, and Georgia. It was a similar situation.
Yeah, and look, and because Auburn has the Alabama and Georgia games on the road this year, I would think that they'll be in a very similar situation to what they were last year, which is that even if they lose 2 games, if they win the SEC, I think they'll still have enough to get in the playoff. We didn't actually see it happen last year, but considering where they were going into the SEC championship game, I think we're all pretty certain that if they won that game, they would have been the first 2-loss team to make the playoff. And so I think if you're Auburn, the Washington game isn't necessarily as important as it is to beat either Alabama or Georgia on the road. They're going to and obviously the Alabama game, because of the division, is the more important of those 2.
And we'll talk to Coach Malzahn tomorrow, but let me go back to that Washington game beginning of the year. We know Washington's good, but where are they in your ranking?
Yeah, they're number 6 overall, and that might be a little bit higher than you see them in the polls when the preseason polls start to come out. But they do have a lot of experience back on offense. Last year they had some inexperience in the secondary, but they've got most of their guys back on defense as well. Some really big losses, especially one big one who you're probably going to see taken in the first round of the NFL draft inside at defensive tackle. But Washington's still a very talented team and obviously a very well-coached team with Chris Peterson. They might not, recruit at the same level as USC does, but still a talented team. Look, we saw just 2 years ago in the playoff game against Alabama, if not for a defensive touchdown late in the first half, that game probably would have gotten pretty uncomfortable for Alabama in the fourth quarter. That's not to say they would have lost without that. But I think Washington showed that even against a team that had more talent than they did, they had enough to hang in there without a critical mistake. And so if they don't make that critical mistake against Auburn, I give them a good chance in that game, even though, we call it neutral site. I think we all know that Auburn playing in Atlanta is going to be far from a 50-50 crowd. Let's just put it that way. By the way, Auburn playing 3 straight games in that building. That's kind of crazy when you think about it.
It really is. It's the kind of thing you expect from Alabama.
Yeah.
I think we had that with Alabama.
Yes.
Was it last year? Yeah, I think Alabama played in the SEC championship game. They played not 3 straight, but one of the years they played SEC championship game. They played in the playoffs, and they opened the season in the same place. But, you expect that. Brad, we appreciate it, as always. You gave us something to chew on while Tiger Woods was finishing his round.
At least you don't have to talk about the Big 12 anymore.
Absolutely. Good to have you on. Great to have Brad Edwards give us a little dose of the college football season. And when we talk to Coach Malzahn tomorrow, you forget what a tough schedule that is, especially starting with the University of Washington. We're up against a break. More of your phone calls when we come back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Talking about LSU, and let me throw this question out to LSU fans, and I know this is one of the best fan bases in America, but if these projections hold up, 6'6", 7'5", 8'4", I mean, what is a number where LSU fans are going to quit talking about Ed Ogeron's future? And right now, you still hear chatter. Many still question the hire. Many don't think it was a good move, and we're not talking about affection for Ed Ogeron. We're talking about realistic expectations. And I frankly don't think 8-4 is a number that you want to put on the board and have a calm and serene offseason. So love to hear from some Tiger fans as well. 855 LSU Tiger fans, not Tiger Woods fans. 855-242-7285. That is the number. Hambone is in Alabama. Good afternoon.
Hello, Paul Finebaum.
Hi there.
How you doing, sir?
What's going on?
Hello.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Paul, Georgia's schedule? They've got a bunch of cupcakes. Wouldn't you agree? Outside of playing South Carolina and Auburn, they should be in the championship game. Do you agree with that?
I do.
Who's got the hardest schedule in the SEC? Which school's got the hardest schedule in the SEC? Auburn.
Well, I think LSU probably has. Auburn's schedule is very difficult. I mean, I frankly think Auburn's, in terms of a realistic contender, having to play Washington at the opening game, which is going to be a top 10 team, and then having to finish the season at Georgia and at Alabama.
Well, I know Georgia's schedule.
Auburn also has to go to Mississippi State. I frankly think Auburn's schedule is ridiculously difficult.
I'll agree with that. I'm not an Auburn fan, but I will agree with that. Anyway.
Appreciate the call. Thank you. Russell is up next. Russell, what do you got?
Yes, sir. I'm calling from Demopolis, Alabama.
Thank you very much.
I was wondering, what do you think about the LeBron-Saban beef?
I don't think really anything about it. I think it's two massive figures who are having lawyers squabble about things, and I'll make you a prediction. You don't hear another word about it.
Yes, sir. And also, I want to give a shout out to the Demopolis tennis team. We have a match today against Tuscaloosa Central. Very good dog. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much. Great to hear from Demopolis, Alabama. Great place down there. And Joe is in Mississippi. What do you got, Joe?
Yes, sir. What do I got? I want to talk about the upcoming season. and the realistic goal that for LSU fans to have about Ed Orgeron?
Okay, what about it?
Well, I believe that I'm pulling for Coach O. I hope he does great. You know, there's too many the coaching carousel is really, you know, it's just an ongoing thing these days. There's really no stability except for Nick Saban being at Alabama. But other than that, I'm just, you know, I believe LSU's probably, hopefully 9-3. I'll say 8-4. But they, you know, they got some sports talk radio shows around here saying they're gonna go 5-7, which that's understandable with the quarterback problems we've had in the past. And now I don't think we're gonna have a running back as much as people think we are.
So let me ask you this, Joe. Okay, we all love Coach O. What does he need to do to prove that he can coach in this league?
Well, what I think he needs to do to coach in this league, well, you know, we did lose a couple of recruits to, you know, to big-time programs, but you know, just win the recruiting battles. You know, these kids, you're not going to get every one of the kids. You know, they're going to want to go and they want to play and they want to go to a successful program. And, you know, you can't blame them for wanting to go to the likes of Alabama and, you know, and so forth. You know, who wouldn't? But, you know, I think for in-state recruits such as the 4 or 5 stars, I mean, you can sell it all day long that, hey, we're not going to be number one unless we don't get to number one, you know. But the quarterback situation has to be addressed, and you know, and I know that's always a question mark for a few years, well, longer than a few years. But I believe Miles Brennan or Lowell Narcisse can maybe one of them can take control of that offense instead of run two. I'm not too thrilled on the 2 quarterback system. If one of them can, you know, get the upper hand in the spring or the summer, you know, I think you try to ride him till it, you know, till the wheels fall off. But, you know, but then you got to crawl before you walk, just like everything else. And that's what's going on with these quarterbacks these days.
Hey, great to hear from you, Joe. We're up against the break. More phone calls at 855-242-7285.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
Thank you for listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast. The Paul Finebaum Show airs weekdays on the SEC Network, beginning at 3 Eastern.
It was BYOG, bring your own guts.
This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back. Second hour. We've had a good conversation. A lot of LSU chatter when we were joined a minute ago by Brad Edwards. He gave the FPI on LSU. It's pretty grim. LSU, according to the odds, will not be favored in about half their games. What does that mean? What can Coach O in his second full season, second and a half season overall? He took over about 5th game over in the 16 season for Les Miles. But this program, again, it helps you with expectations. If you win 7 or 8 games, people think maybe you did better than you were supposed to, but that's still not enough, most people believe, at LSU.
Quiet, please. This is your 4 p.m. call segment. On the phone from Houston, Texas, Rob, the LSU fan.
What you got, Rob?
Hey, Rob. Hey, Paul. I was just calling. I guess I kind of wanted to mirror I answer your question on what you think what I think Les needs or O needs to do to stick around. Like the other guy was saying, we need to catch those recruits that we missed out on, the Patrick Certain Juniors of the world. And it's like 9-3, like you're saying. I think that would be pretty good, but we really just need to beat Alabama. Like they've been owning us worse than we've been owning A&M recently. It feels like, but. If he can take Alabama down on Tiger Stadium on this November, I might be busting on my O face.
Yeah, I mean, there just comes a point when saying beating the expectations is not enough. I mean, I look at LSU, Rob, and I bet you do as well. Way up here, one of the premier programs in college football. They should be winning 10 games every year.
I would agree with that statement. I came in in 2010, I was enrolled over there, and then I got kind of spoiled in 2011 with the Honey Badger and all that. But then I guess I kind of got my hopes up, and then the past few years since then, things just haven't been the same. And I don't know if Coach O is the one to bring us back to the glory days. I hope he is, but if he's not, we might need to look for another option if that's not the case.
Good to hear from you.
This will be a telling year.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. D is in Seattle. Welcome to our program. Good afternoon.
Hey, how are you, sir?
Very well.
Love your show.
Thank you.
Edward Alborough of SEC Sports. I would just like to make a comment about the Auburn and Washington game coming up.
Sure.
I'm from the South. I work here in Seattle, and I'm tired of all the chirping, and the chatter about Washington and how they stack up against teams in the SEC. Please explain to these folks that the real reality is they play a tougher, grittier game in the SEC. I'll take your comments off the TV. Thank you.
Listen, I respect Coach Peterson. They were in the playoffs 2 years ago. They're a really good program. But to try to say that they're playing a more difficult schedule than the SEC is just not true. The Pac-12 is a good league, but it's not the SEC. Week in, week out, it's okay. I mean, you have good teams, but I think overall, and it may be getting better. I mean, you have a couple of pretty good coaches there now with Kelly in UCLA. Now, Herm Edwards, I thought, was a mistake at Arizona State, but still, it's a competitive league, but it's not better than the SEC. I'm sorry. Let's move along. Donna is in Kansas, and you are on the air. Go right ahead.
Hello, Paul.
Hi
How
there.
are you this evening?
We are doing great. Thank you very much.
Okay, I feel really like a minority here because I haven't heard any women calling in this afternoon, but I'm going to call. So kind of help me with this because this is my first time. Okay, this is my thing. I'm way out here in the Midwest. My team is in Lexington. I'm a Wildcat, Kentucky Wildcat fan. Okay, now I listened to Mr. Edwards and his analysis of the football season and everything, and I agree with a lot of the things that were said, but this is mine, and I want your comments. This is my thing. All that sounds all well and fine, but I'm concerned about the SEC East, and I understand that with analysis, it's only based on what has happened, what has been done, but like you said, expectations are one thing, but human nature is another thing. I mean, we can analyze and project all we want to, but when it's actually out there, when it's going on, I mean, so talk about those Wildcats and tell me what you think and how you feel about.
Yeah, Donna, I've been a pretty big supporter of Mark Stoops, and I found last season to be disappointing. And I know that some would argue, hey, we won 7 games, we went to a bowl game again, but I thought Kentucky should have beaten Florida. I just didn't understand that one at all. I think Kentucky had beaten South Carolina either right around that time, and I thought that was a major setback. That's the kind of game you have to win. You're playing the worst Florida team in years, and you have the game won, and you let it slip away. The bowl game was another disappointment, maybe some mitigating circumstances involved there, but I'm expecting more than 7 wins this year under Mark Stoops.
Yeah, well, I am too. I'm looking forward to an awesome season from them. They have a lot of players returning. They're really doing good. Defense, I understand, is really coming along outstanding so far. So, we'll get a chance to see next Saturday at the spring game. But I'm really excited about those Wildcats.
Well, you should be. The program is definitely taking a right turn. I may be putting too many expectations on there, but I think it's that's just what we thought last year. Appreciate the call. Let's continue with more at 855-242-7285. Great to have you here. Noah is up next in Tennessee. Hello, Noah.
Hey, how you doing? I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller here, and I just want to ask you about
how you think Coach Pruitt will do in his first year at Tennessee?
I think he'll do well. I can't tell you the final record because it's a little bit difficult. I don't know what he's going to put on the field, but I think he was a good hire. I think he's hitting all the right buttons, which is all you can do between the day you're hired and the first game. You don't have to knock people over with a lot of fancy words and stupid cliches like his predecessor. Coach Pruitt is winning people over with hard work. And he is displaying that on the football field and the practice field. But giving you a number, I think a bowl game would be nice. It may be difficult, but that would be my level of expectation for the upcoming season.
All right, I'd like to give a shout-out to the Huntington tennis team, and thanks for listening.
Good to hear from you. Pretty famous coach came from Huntington, Tennessee, that coached at Tennessee. Glenn is up next in Kentucky. What do you say, Glenn?
Yes, I got to ask you a question about Missouri. Everybody talking about getting the players played. Well, Michael Porter's dad is a coach. Went to Washington. He went to Washington. And he was on TV talking about when he went to Missouri that it was because of his family. It wasn't. It was because of his dad. Couldn't that be illegal because his dad is making money off of him?
Yeah, Glenn, I'm not sure I really understand where you're going here. Can you explain it? We'll take one more shot at it. I mean, I heard what you said.
Yeah, you know Michael Porter went to Missouri.
Okay. Michael Porter's father ended up being hired there. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yes, but Michael Porter got on TV and saying that he went there because of his mom. Do you believe that should be illegal to hire the dad to make millions?
Well, first of all, his dad didn't have anything to do with him making millions. Michael Porter will be paid because of his ability. Had Michael Porter gone to Kansas and his dad didn't, he still would have been the same player.
Missouri got the players because of his dad.
But don't forget there was another brother involved too.
I mean, do you believe that should be legal?
Well, I will tell you this: I don't like the idea of fathers being involved in a recruitment in terms of them coaching, but there is nothing illegal about it. Certainly, that is a fact. You can question the ethics of it, but in this case, the SEC and the NCAA, I'm sure, looked into it, and there was nothing nefarious going on.
Okay, the second question, and I'll hang up and let you. Why is it that Duke get a pass when they lose, yet Kentucky get criticized, and everybody saying that Duke was going to win Virginia, but they're not getting criticized?
First of all, Glenn, Duke won the national championship 2 years ago, so Kentucky won it last in 2012, so that may have been something to do with it. But again, I don't think Duke gets a pass. Duke did make it to the Elite Eight. Kentucky didn't get out of the first weekend. I think that may have more to do with it. I take it back. Kentucky did make it to the Sweet 16 when they lost to Kansas State. John Calipari just opens himself up for criticism by talking about different things than Mike Krzyzewski. And Mike Krzyzewski also has 5 national championships and is the greatest living active coach. So it's hard to find a lot of fault with that man. We'll take a break. More of your calls, 855-242-7285.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back as we continue here. It is Thursday afternoon, first week of April. Glad you're here, and more phone calls at 855-242-7285. Tomorrow we'll spend a little more time talking about the weekend spring games. We'll be joined, among others, by Gus Malzahn. Let's continue and take some more phone calls here. Matthew in Jacksonville, welcome to our program. Good afternoon.
How are you? I just want to know, what do you think about Dan Mullen and him developing Emory Jones in his first season at Florida?
Well, I think he give Dan a pretty good shot at it, considering he has the label of a quarterback whisperer. We've seen what he's done with Smith in the past before he got to the SEC with Tebow and obviously with Nick Fitzgerald. Thank you for the call. Appreciate it very much. Griff is up next. Griff, go right ahead. Welcome to our program. How are you?
Fine. How you doing?
Excellent. Thank you.
Appreciate the call.
You bet.
I was just wanting to reflect on some old days back in Athens. I live in Silver Hill, Alabama now, but I was raised in Athens. But I heard an older gentleman talking about, Pat Dye and Wally Butts and some of those days back then. I used to watch the Georgia practice in Athens, sitting on a little grassy knoll when I was a kid, and used to sneak into the ball games when I could, and it was a lot of fun, though. But anyway,
I can imagine.
Yeah, he was talking about Pat being a certain size, like he said 185 pounds, but I think Pat was closer to 200 pounds, and he played guard. And he was tough. He was my idol back then when I was growing up.
No, he was a great player. I got to know Coach Dye. I got to Alabama about the same time he was arriving at Auburn, and we spent a lot of time talking about his days in Athens. And he was an All-American. He was a great player.
Oh, yeah. No doubt. Yeah, I had a lot of fun growing up in Athens because of those reasons. My daddy was a ROTC instructor back in those old days, and he and Wally didn't get along too good. He had a particular player that didn't just do too good in the ROTC, and Wally sort of got onto his case. I never knew the outcome, but anyway, my father told me about that a long time ago. It was sort of fun.
Well, dogs are back, so I'm sure you're pretty happy.
Oh, yeah, love it. Sure do. I appreciate the call.
Thank you very much, Griff. Nice of you to call. If you want to give us a ring, you can get in now at 855-242-7285. Let's talk to Justin next up in Florida. Hello, Justin. Welcome to our show.
Hey, Paul. How are you?
We are great. Thank you.
Third time caller now. I called you the first time about Elba. It's probably half a year ago. My first question was, I hadn't heard anything about Tua. How's he doing? Does anybody know about his hand, or is he got?
He's doing really well. He's back at practice. He's throwing the ball a little bit. I don't know what the schedule will be for scrimmages, but I think most people feel like he's he lost some time, but I don't think Nick Saban's too concerned. He's been very upbeat when he has talked about him in the media.
I got you. Also, who do you think the Browns will pick up in the draft for the first? Was it the first and third pick or fourth pick?
That's a hard decision. I mean, you're basically talking about 4 quarterbacks and Saquon Barkley. I mean, I probably would. I'd maybe defer to John in the other room, but I would be if I thought I was going to lose Saquon Barkley, I would take him first.
Paul, why not take the sure thing at number 1?
Yeah.
Because think about it this way: when's the last time the Browns drafted a quarterback that turned out to be anything?
Exactly.
Is it going to work this time?
Anything? Because they've drafted a lot of anything quarterbacks, but good quarterbacks, no.
No, exactly. So just take the running back, and then if you're picking again at number 4, Paul,
you get one.
Exactly.
Justin, thanks for the call. I mean, let me go back to John for a second. I really don't know because I think these are all really good quarterbacks. But is there much difference when you go Darnold, Rosen, Allen, Mayfield? I think there is a difference when you get to Mayfield myself, but
probably not. I mean,
he would be last on my list.
And think about it this way too: if you're picking there at 4 and you let the other 2 teams ahead of you who clearly want quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. Take 2 of the guys, you have kind of an easy out for your fan base. Hey, we took the guy that was left. He kind of fell into our laps. Mm-hmm. The Eagles were in this situation a couple years ago with Carson Wentz. They're sitting there at number 2. It was either Jared Goff or it was Carson Wentz. And the Eagles were going to take whoever fell to them and just going to live with that decision based on who the Rams were going to take at number 1. The Browns are in a great spot if they take Barkley number 1. Paul.
You think the Browns are going to do their homework this time around?
Well, listen, I think the Browns are smarter than you think they are. Let's check in next with Wes, who is on the air. Go right ahead, Wes.
Hey, Paul. How are you?
We are well. Thank you.
Hey, so I just wanted to get your thoughts on an idea I had. Say for doing a kind of a conference-wide for football each year, a conference-wide, almost like a tournament like they do in college basketball, have the SEC versus the Big 12, and then for that weekend they'll be dedicated to just teams in the SEC playing teams in the Big 12 and showcases. I think it'd be a good idea for it'd help beef up the football schedule a little bit you had games like, Texas A&M, Texas Tech has helped bring back rivalries. Then you have games like Auburn, Georgia Tech. I think it'd be a good idea. Just want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think doing universal football schedules are problematic, and here's why. Let's just talk about the SEC, for example. Georgia plays Georgia Tech. South Carolina plays Clemson. You have Florida State. So right there, you have three significantly important schools who I don't know if they could be part of that conversation. And I realize you could still do it with others. You couldn't do it with everyone. In basketball, I think they leave. I think they do in the SEC Big Ten Challenge. I think they do 12, don't they, or 10 or 12? 12, I think.
I want to say about 12.
Yeah, two get left out. And then you have another factor. The Big 12 and the SEC play a bowl game, usually the Sugar Bowl. You've got other ACC, Big Ten, SEC. So I think what's the best conference? Would you go Big 12?
Oh no, I'm an SEC. I'm an Auburn fan. So
no, I'm talking about with the SEC. It either has to be the ACC or the Big 12 because the Big 10 would never do it.
Right. Like I said, it would just be interesting to kind of see. I think it would kind of help. I think for some games you think that could be interesting. For example, you'd have Missouri, Kansas come back. That's a rivalry they'd love to see. Indiana, Kentucky in the gridiron, I think would be kind of an interesting game to watch. And then I think it'd be great for the fans in that area.
Listen, Wes, I think it's worth exploring. I would need to defer to the conference commissioner to ask him how difficult that would be to do. I think everyone agrees it's a good idea, but how do you do it?
No, my other question was, what do you think would be a better idea? Like a mutual site, kind of thing for a couple of the games, or do you think it'd be better doing trying to do an even home and a home?
Wes, I am. This is maybe a subject for another day, but I'm officially getting sick of neutral site games. I've been to games in Dallas. I've been to games in Atlanta. There is an attraction to them, but I would always prefer a home and home. To me, there's nothing quite like going to someone else's campus. I think about the first time I covered a game at Lincoln, Nebraska, at Norman, Oklahoma, at South Bend, or at State College, Pennsylvania. Those were all incredibly memorable experiences in my football life. And just going to another game in Atlanta, with all due respect, or Dallas or Orlando, I've had enough of them.
I could see where you're coming from. Definitely it'd be cool for fans to be able to see, another school, another conference's traditions and everything, and seeing how their tailgates are. And who doesn't love
Wes, I totally agree. John
campuses.
Just told me Auburn and Penn State. Thanks for the call. Alabama, I covered Alabama, as many of you know. Alabama, Penn State played every year. And it was such a great game. Alabama fans became friends with Penn State fans. In fact, there was an Alabama chapter of a fan chapter started, I think it was in Bridgeport, Pennsylvania. And it's really what college football should be about. And every year, you went to the other place. I've been to State College countless times for games, and the fans welcome you, just like the fans did at the other end. And we miss that nowadays. You just don't see very much of that, and I think it's a shame. But Booger McFarland will join us next as soon as we could pry him away from a television. I bet we can. He'll be with us. So get up. Booger coming up next.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Everyone in the neighborhood knew about Bobby. Bobby, the basketball boy, they called him. Bobby wanted to go pro someday, so he was always out in the driveway shooting hoops. But one day, his mom came out and told him, "Hey, your wife wants you to take out the trash." His mom was visiting, and Bobby was a grown man. He had kind of missed his window. Plus, no one had ever seen him actually make a basket. But on the other hand, Bobby had heard how Geico could save him money on car insurance, so he switched and saved. So it was all good.
Booger McFarland joining us. We're going to get to the LSU numbers in a minute, but we first want to just listen. It's what time is it? It's 4:30 in New York. Booger, I saw you on my TV at 7 o'clock this morning. I know you get up early because we got up early together every Sunday this fall, but getting up every day at 4 o'clock in the morning, are you getting sick of that?
Well, I don't get up at 4. I wake up at 4:40.
Okay.
And we have our first meeting at 5:15. So it's not that bad.
Oh.
I'm a morning person.
Okay. I mean, I knew, but that's still kind of early.
Yeah, it's a little early for you, Paul, but for me, it's not bad.
Okay. Well, I'm not used to working that hard.
Hey, trust me, when you got to get up every morning and talk to Greeny and Beetle and Jalen at 7 a.m., yeah, that's work.
I was about to say you couldn't pay me, but I think I can think of a number you probably could pay me to do that.
Exactly.
What's it been like? And we'll move on to football, but for those who don't know what we're talking about, Booger has been at the desk all week of this new Get Up show with Mike Greenberg on ESPN.
It's fun, Paul. You get a chance to launch a show, and obviously there's the newness of it, but there's also the kinks and things that you got to work out. We're starting a new show, so 4 days in, we're still on the air, so that's a good thing, and the show's getting better and better, so I can't wait for tomorrow to finish out the week.
No, it has definitely gotten better. You're right. I thought the Seth Meyers today, was really funny. Seth McFarland, Myers, who cares? It was still funny.
It was.
Let me ask you before we get to football. Since you're now Get Up's golf analyst. Since you can talk golf on ESPN, I can get your golf impressions of Tiger today. Closed with 2 birdies on the final couple of holes to save what looked like it was going to be an out of control round. What did you think?
Paul, Bobby Jones said it best. There's golf and then there's tournament golf, and the two are not alike. And for some reason, when Tiger Woods gets in these big tournaments, he puts a lot of pressure on himself. He's yet to hit that first fairway at the Masters in a long time. And he just starts kind of swinging out of sync. And I thought, he does the one thing that a lot of golfers don't do. Sergio wound up making a 13 on the hole today, and Tiger just kind of will never get to that point because he'll never let it go. And he's always going to fight. He's always going to scrap, and he's going to get every ounce that he can out of a round. And I thought today, without birding any of the par 5, shooting 1 over par, as bad as he played, was not bad. And I think he's only 4 to 5 shots off the lead, and he's probably going to be right there tomorrow. He's got to come out and play better tomorrow, though, Paul.
So, Booger, do I understand correctly you and Kelly Ripa are going to a spin class as soon as you hang up here?
Well, I don't know if Kelly Ripa's going to be there.
It sounds like something she would be doing.
I am going to a spin class, Paul, because here's the thing. I like to run outside.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing about being in the Northeast, Paul. It's 34 degrees outside, so Bull's going to do cold weather. So I'm going to a spin class. This flywheel spin stuff is kind of pretty new to Bull. You walk in there, they give you a bike, and there's about 50 other people in there. Most of them don't have many clothes on, and there's an instructor screaming, ride. And it's kind of pretty new, and I'm enjoying it. So I'm going to give it another try today.
I just checked the forecast here, Boog. 73 and sunny tomorrow if you want to get out of there early.
Trust me, I'm trying to book an earlier flight right now.
Talking to Booger McFarland. Booger, we just showed a number. The FPI's out. I know you don't cover college football anymore. You've gone Hollywood on us. But the FPI is projecting that LSU, what's the number, Mark, will be an underdog in more than half of the games. They're favored right now in only 5 games in 2018. You know this program inside and out. Assuming the FPI is actually correct, the projected win-loss record is 6-6. How is this going to play on the Bayou?
Well, if LSU were to finish 6-6, you and I both know it's not going to play well. And when you look at their schedule, Paul, with Georgia, Miami, Alabama, Auburn, A&M, it's a loaded schedule. We thought last year's schedule was tough. This year's schedule, if it's not the toughest in America, it's one of the top 2 or 3, and they got their work cut out for them. They got a new offensive coordinator. Ed Ogeron has recruited pretty well. The defense is back. They're paying around the $2.5 million. So this is definitely a year where the pressure cooker is definitely going to get turned up, and the schedule is not going to do them any favors. They're going to have to play a lot of good football to win against that schedule, Paul.
I mean, Booger, we know how long it's been since LSU has beaten Alabama, since they've been to the championship. I mean, everybody knows all of that. Are the expectations being lessened at LSU, or are things still the same as they've been for the last 15 years? LSU is supposed to be a championship team.
It's supposed to be a championship team, Paul. The expectations will never go down. Not when you have the caliber of players that grow in the state of Louisiana. Not when the expectations of the fans are what they are. they are not going to go down, and there's no reason that LSU should not win. I understand the schedule is tough. I understand that there are a lot of people wanting and looking for bigger and better things, but when you look at what LSU is paying their defensive coordinator, when you look at the talent that they have on the football team and the recruiting classes that they're getting coming in, there's no excuses for not winning. They got a brand new football facility being built. They're going to have top-of-the-line facilities once again, even though they've kind of fallen behind the last couple of years. So there are no excuses, and I don't think anybody in Baton Rouge are going to make any excuses, especially right now in April.
And it is April, so I don't want to make too much out of anything, except this is a crazy time of the year that we look ahead. Assuming that you would agree that Alabama and Georgia are the teams to beat, who else do you see ascending in that direction?
I think you got to look at Alabama. You got to look at Georgia. You got to look at Auburn. With everything that they have coming back, you probably got to look at A&M. I'm going to give Jimbo the benefit of the doubt, Paul, and here's why. Jimbo recognizes the one issue and the one problem that Texas A&M has, and that's that they're not very tough. And he looked me dead in the eye and he said that. He said, I know my team isn't tough and I'm going to fix it. And so that was about 2 or 3 months ago. And so by the time we get to September, that would have been 9 months. And he will have one monumental task, which is to fix A&M's toughness. If he can do that, A&M is going to be pretty good. And I'll tell you another team, Paul, that I was very impressed with. And 2 years ago I wasn't, because the defense was terrible 2 years ago. And I think over the last year and a half plus, they've gotten a lot better. I'm expecting big things from South Carolina. And I can tell you from having been in Columbia this past weekend, they are circling, I believe it's the second Saturday in September, or maybe third when they play Georgia. They are circling that date, and they are looking forward to it in Columbia, South Carolina.
Winnable game then, right?
I don't know if it's winnable, but they think it is. That's all that matters. I think that's the one thing that matters, Paul, is they think it's winnable. They got a quarterback that I happen to be on the field because we did the whole referee thing, and I just listened and talked to Jake Bentley, and you just watched his mannerism and you just watched his movement. Paul, I've never seen a young man play with as much confidence and a team rally around him the way I did Saturday up in South Carolina. They got their starting quarterback. Now, if they can just keep Deebo Samuel healthy, if they can get some pass rush on the outside on defense, Will Muschamp was as relaxed as I've seen him since he first became a head coach. And I think if you're looking for a team that could come out of the pack and challenge a Georgia in the East, it may not be Tennessee, it may not be Florida. Watch out for South Carolina, Paul.
That's an interesting thought. On the other side, you mentioned Auburn, new coach at Mississippi State, but a pretty good team and a really good quarterback. Do you give them a chance to at least challenge for that second position?
I think Mississippi State is going to be pretty good. Anytime you have a returning quarterback coming back, that gives you a leg up on the field. I need to see how healthy Fitzy is. If Fitzy's healthy, they're going to play a tough, physical style of football. We know what they did at Penn State. They used Saquon Barkley a lot. How are they going to do that at Mississippi State? Because they don't have the dynamic running back at Mississippi State. They have a dynamic quarterback like McSorley at Penn State. So I think Mississippi State is going to be good. I don't know if they can challenge Alabama, and I think Auburn right now is still they have to be right there at number 2.
Booger McFarland, you'll see him at a theater near you opening next weekend. Booger, thank you. We'll let you get to spin class and rub shoulders with all the media elite in Manhattan. Thanks for the time.
Hey, Paul, by the way, have you ever taken a spin class?
I've never heard of one until 5 minutes ago.
Well, it's basically a room. They got about 50 bikes in a room, and they're all connected to a computer and a screen, and everybody comes in there, and they play music to get you pumped up and get you going. And so it's about 50 people in a small room riding a bike, and it's kind of warm in there. So the scenery is pretty good. You get a good workout, and you get to work out with a group of people. So it's kind of a different form of group fitness. I love it. I'm starting to kind of buy in, Paul.
Booger, I don't like being around that many people.
I hear you, buddy. Take it easy.
Thanks, Booger. We'll see you soon. Booger McFarland joining us right here on the show. High praise for South Carolina, if you were listening closely. Expectations high at LSU. As always, we will take a break. More of your phone calls at 855-242-7233.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And we welcome all of you back. Glad you're here on this Thursday afternoon. Stan is in El Dorado, Arkansas. Hello, Stan.
How you doing there, Mr. Paul?
We are doing well. Thank you for the call.
Okay, I was just going to get into, the football, basketball season. They're over with. The SEC, Alabama saved us in football. And we got into basketball, and basketball kind of turned to a flop. Everybody thought Kentucky was going to do something. But after losing a lot of games, there's no way they could have done anything. And I just want to talk about a little bit of baseball.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay, and I'm just wondering, I played back years ago. I'm just going to give you a little trivia. I played back in a field back in Montana State, back in our minor leagues. You ever remember a fellow named Cecil Fielder?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Yes, I played with him in the minor leagues.
Did you really? Wow.
And that fella hit the ball probably about 800 foot, the furthest ball I ever seen hit up over Montana State football field.
Oh,
I have never in my life seen a ball hit that far. But what I want to get your opinion on, I didn't know if you kept with baseball or what. The SEC's doing pretty good. We've got probably 4 or 5 top teams.
The SEC's phenomenal in baseball.
That's what how do you think they're going to do this year as far?
Well, I mean, listen, you're talking about, 8, 9, 10, what is the number, 10 teams ranked in the top 25?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't claim to be a baseball expert, but I do hear from them. And, I think Florida is, looks like the best team. I've seen Auburn looking very good, Vandy, LSU. I mean, you go right down the list.
Arkansas plays Auburn this weekend.
Exactly, yeah. The problem, what's about to happen is the league will start cannibalizing itself. They're all so good. But by the time we get to the tournament in late May, early June, that's when I think we'll start separation. But yeah, it's an absolutely phenomenal league.
Okay, there's another thing. My first year that I did get drafted in spring training in Sarasota, Florida. There's a couple of players that you might recognize. Did you ever remember a shortstop at Chicago Cubs, played 16 years, Sean Dunston?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Yes, me and him got drafted the same year. I'm not going to tell the age.
That's okay. I don't blame you.
Well, they stayed, they played the same complex, and we shared the complex over there.
That's great.
But, Paul, I appreciate you answering my question.
Well, thank you very much. You have a good day. Nick is up next. How are you, Nick?
Hey, I'm fine, Paul. Long-time caller, second-time listener. Hey, Paul, breaking news out of Trussville, Alabama. Paul Tyson, Bear Bright's great-grandson, just committed to Alabama, 4-star quarterback. What do you got to say about that?
Well, I'll tell you what. I think he's going to be a big find. He played at Trussville. I know the family well. I know his dad quite well. He happens to be a good friend of mine, very good friend of mine. And I think Alabama got themselves a winner in Paul. He's an outstanding player, and I've talked to people around college football who think he's got a legitimate shot at starting probably 2 years from now.
I agree with you on that, Paul. He's going to be a good one. Paul, I want to talk about Larry's call yesterday. It was funny. I enjoyed that one. When he said you put Matt, you were setting him up. Did you set him up?
Yeah, Nick, I'm not sure what you said there, but I agree with it. We will take a break. Steve Spurrier will join us in about 30 minutes. We'll get his take on comings and goings of the college football world, maybe even a golf question. We're coming right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top. It was BYOG, bring your own guts.
This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
We welcome all of you back as we continue here. Second half show. Steve Spurrier will join us shortly. Look forward to that. Booger McFarland in the last hour. Let's check out. Where are we going to go, guys?
Quiet, please. This is your 5 p.m. call segment. On the phone from Hoover, Alabama, Luke.
What do you say, Luke? Luke, you there? No, Luke.
He shanked that one into the woods, Paul.
That was not good, by the way. Scott is next in Arkansas. Scott, go right ahead.
Hey, Paul. Good to talk to you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, we'll talk to you a little bit about Arkansas. We're kind of excited about what's going on over there in Fayetteville.
You should be.
Yes. Chad Morris, he is so motivated. He's exciting to listen to. And I think he's going to do the things that he's talking about. And if you look at our schedule this year, it's a perfect schedule for this rebuilding year.
No, there aren't any impossible non-conference games. You're right.
No, they're not. Outside of our regular West schedule, which is a nightmare as usual, I think the mistake Bielema made was trying to play Alabama football against Alabama, and nobody gets away with that.
No.
The teams that he's had problems with are no-huddle, shotgun, run-and-gun offenses, and that's what it's going to take to succeed in the West.
I think you're 100% correct. Now, what do you think is realistic? Looking at this schedule, non-conference of Eastern Illinois at Colorado State, North Texas, and Tulsa.
You got to beat those guys. I mean, and I think you can. He done what he done at SMU with what he had there, and our players are better than theirs. We should win all the non-conference games and might get away with a couple of upsets. I think Coach Orgeron's overrated. We might get away with that.
Interesting. Again, I don't know. This is such a difficult thing with so many new coaches, and everyone being optimistic. This is the time for rhetoric, and I'm not about to tell you that you're wrong, because I think Ed Orgeron is one of the most vulnerable coaches in this league. But I appreciate the confidence. Thank you very, very much. Let's talk to Mark next. Mark, go right ahead. You're on the air. Appreciate the call.
Hey, Paul, I'm a little nervous. I got anxiety problems, but what I wanted to ask you about you and Martin John, I was looking back over the Alabama-Georgia game, and at the starting of overtime, when they went out to the field for the coin toss, Georgia looked like they had already lost. They wouldn't even look the Alabama players in the eye. They just looked away. Did y'all notice that?
I didn't, because I was still trying to figure out how Alabama had gotten this game into overtime, missing that chip shot field goal.
Right.
I didn't notice that at all. No.
But if you go back and just watch the coin flip for the overtime, they had their helmets off. Alabama had theirs on, and you could see it in their face. They were scared. And I don't care what anybody says. You can look at a person and tell if they're confident or they're scared. And they were scared. I've watched a few times. But if y'all get a chance, just go back and just look at that, and I think y'all will agree with me.
Okay, Mark, we're exactly 3 months removed from that game. I will do that tonight. Thank you very much. Kelvin is up next. Good afternoon, Kelvin.
Hey, Mr. Coach Finebaum, how you doing today?
Quite well, thank you. What's going on?
Well, I just want to talk about the national championship game between Alabama and Georgia, looking at the quarterback situation. I saw in the game when the other quarterback came in, he did great, and they respected each other. Now I'm hearing that, whoever's going to start quarterback, that the other quarterback is going to leave. I don't believe that, because I saw between that championship game that they really respected each other, Coach, and that's all I got to say about that. Because I believe in both of them, and I love both of them as quarterbacks, and I think both of them will still be there.
Listen, I have no earthly idea, Kelvin. If I had to bet today, I bet both are there at the beginning of the season. I bet we see both of them, but it's always hard to predict what a 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old is going to do. But I think right now, though, if you're Tua, you're basically playing the game that Jalen will play one more year and go pro anyway.
Okay, I agree with that, Coach. But I'm a first-time caller, and I really enjoy your show. I watch it every day. And thanks for accepting me in, and I will give you more calls in the near future.
Thank you very much. And that would be the argument there. But why would you leave and sit out a year when you're probably going to be the quarterback the following year anyway? And you may be the quarterback this year. May is up next in Louisiana. May, welcome to the show.
Well, I cannot believe it. I'm on the air. I have tried a long time to get on. Paul, I'm going to be 77 years old. And I always uplift players and kids and all that. And you just put LSU down constantly. You're already judging that Coach Orgeron's going to be out going again, just like you did for Miles.
Well, May, allow me to interrupt one thing, because I you can say whatever you want, but you can't say things that aren't true. And I've never said that Ed Orgeron is going to be out. By the way, I did predict that Les Miles was going to be out. And guess what? He was out. Next.
Yeah. Hello?
Yeah, no, I'm still here. I just wanted to make sure we corrected that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the way you talk about Orgeron, I mean, it's indicating that.
Well, May, let me ask you a question. What have I said about Ed Orgeron specifically that you find objectionable?
Well, you said something early today on there. I can't exactly remember the exact words you said, but it was like, you know, he was on the hot seat, but he's not up there. So I just think we should back these kids, no matter who they play for. And honestly, I think you're very biased toward Alabama. And I mean, if that's your team, that's fine. But I think this network.
By the way, May, let me correct you. That's not my team. That's not my team. I went to the University of Tennessee.
Yeah, but you talk about Tennessee like you do LSU, so that's not saying very much.
May, let me explain something to you, okay?
Sure.
I have a job that essentially has me hosting a show talking about a number of different subjects. My job is not to enable people. It's to have an honest conversation here about a game that we all love. I have said countless times, and I'll say countless more, that I have great affection for Ed Orgeron. Would I have hired him? That's a matter of opinion. I probably wouldn't have, but the fans of LSU like him. They want him to succeed. The questions I have raised are the decision making that he has had in hiring Matt Canada and losing him after one season, and the fact that he elevated Steve Ensminger. He elevated Steve Ensminger. He elevated a man that nobody wanted as offensive coordinator other than Ed Orgeron.
Well, I don't. And just like you said, do they have a quarterback? Yeah, they got 3 pretty good ones out there, but he's really not going to name until the starting day. What about Saban? Saban don't him until the day they play. I mean, it's sir?
May, it doesn't matter to me when he names a starting quarterback, whether it's Brennan or someone else. It doesn't matter to me. I wouldn't name the starting quarterback until the first game anyway. That's that's a smart thing to do.
Well, you're right. That's what I believe. You know.
But I mean, I'm just simply responding to you, insinuating that I have something against a man that I don't. That's all.
Yeah. Well, it's just the way you come over and saying things, and that's what I believe. What else? And there's a lot of people believe that. Sir?
What else do I do that you don't like?
Oh, I'm not going to sit here and put you down.
Well, I mean, you're the one that called in and said I was biased. I'm trying to get better. So help me get unbiased, okay?
Well, you're smart enough to know.
So are you suggesting that I should say this? I should talk about LSU in the same with the same equanimity that I do Alabama?
No.
Okay.
No, we don't want to be put in that category. Look.
What category is that? Having won 5 of the last 9 national championships and having beaten LSU every year since 2011? Yeah. Is that the category that you don't want to be in?
I seem to think this year it's sports. It's not like we have to win, you know. It's nice to win them, but I think everybody ought to get a good chance, you know, at it. Don't you think?
May, I've been to Tiger Stadium. I've been to Tiger Stadium dozens of, if not 50 or 100 times, and
it's a great place to be.
It is.
Isn't
It's
it?
one of my favorite places. I think the fans there want to win. They expect to win.
Well, yeah, we do, but not every year. I mean, you got to give these other teams. You know what it's going to be? Just like the years that Bryant was there. Nobody wanted to go play because you knew you were going to get beaten. You know, it's like, I don't know.
So LSU has lost 7 straight times to Alabama. Do you think that's good?
Well, I think maybe this year will be different.
And you're basing that on what?
Well, just what we've been hearing in the state.
And what have you been hearing?
Well, we got 3 good quarterback prospects and wide receivers, and the defensive lines could be great. And so far this year, we've been hearing a lot of good things about the offense. So, what you been hearing?
I just talked to Booger McFarland, who knows more than me.
I watched it.
And he thinks it could be a tough year.
Yeah. Well, did you look at our schedule?
Well, that's part of the reason why we think it's going to be a tough year. But you're saying you're hearing a lot of good things. I'm just trying to find out where you're getting your information. That's all.
Well, we're listening to the TV locally. So I seem to think, well, listen, I appreciate you taking my call.
Okay, May.
And go Tigers.
Go Tigers. We are going to head to the break. Steve Spurrier coming up shortly. More of your phone calls when we come back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back to the program. I'm Ann, who is always scratching an itch. Good afternoon.
Hey there, Paul. How's it going?
Excellent.
You know, to the last caller, it's really up to her to make LSU relevant. She calls in, talks about her teams, brings up points, things that she's encouraged by, things that she may not be encouraged by, and you just kind of roll it off, and you get your information from other people who tend to know their teams, and they follow their teams, like Booger is pretty intent with LSU, and you repeat some of the things that you know that he has told you, and it's up to her to make them relevant. It's not up to you to make them relevant. And but anyway, Paul, you're a patron, okay? You're going to the golf tournament. Do you want to go to the tee box? Do you want to go to the fairway? Or do you want to find you a spot at the greens and watch a tournament?
Well, if I'm going to spend all
day, aren't you?
Now, if I'm at Augusta, which is the course we're talking about,
right?
I have spent many hours at the number 12 tee, and you know why I've chosen the tee?
What's that?
Because they don't let you gather behind the green. It's the only place to watch it, and you can also watch the 11th green and then peer over to your right and watch the 13th. That's probably that's the best place on the golf course. But by and large, if you're just sitting there with your friends, the green's not a bad place to be.
Yeah, that's actually the best place because that's where, I guess some people like to see the drive, and maybe some people like to go to the fairway, and there's not much happening there unless maybe they're off into the rough or something, but there's nothing really rough at the Masters. But it's not like to the average people out there that's never been to something like that. You're not walking around and following golfers because, pretty much every bit of that is roped off, and there's folks 8-9 deep all the way around that course. Is that a fair comment?
That's an accurate comment.
That's an accurate comment. You know why it's accurate? Because I have been there.
You've been to Augusta
Not
National?
as many times. What? I was there in '96.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was Tiger's amateur year. He won it the next year.
That was the famous Norman collapse.
I guess, yeah.
Now don't take this the wrong way here, man, but what were you doing there?
I won some tickets, and I went over there, and I didn't wear golf shoes, and I didn't have on, golf britches,
just the idea of
let me tell you, Paul.
Greg Allman showing up at the Masters kind of makes me nervous.
And I was over there in a pair of Nikes, a pair of Levi blue jeans, a Molly Hatchet T-shirt, and an Auburn hat. And the guy that I was with said, "Man, here, wear this," and he gave me a CNN hat.
Were you humming?
He said, you might blend in.
Were you humming "Hissing on Summer Lawns"?
No, we walked every hole on that. We went to the puttings, we went to the drive-ins, we went up to the oak trees.
I was there that day.
Oh, it was a fabulous day. I'll never forget it. And you know what? I think you'll agree with this. You cannot adjust the green on your TV to match what you're actually seeing out there.
No, you're not. You can't.
It's almost impossible. And I tell you, Paul, I'm standing over
Hey,
here. And I'm just hip
hey,
with a Molly
let
Hatch
me
t-shirt on.
sound like a golf fan, okay?
Sure.
Who'd you follow?
We just followed everybody. Shook hands with couples and all of them when they was coming off driving range and elbowed them and you know, some of them they kind of uppity, but you know, they was, you know, met everybody that was there, Ernie Els and all.
I mean, do you think it could have been that they
great.
saw you and, I mean, here's a professional golfer playing in the most important tournament of the year, and if you're Fred Couples, you look at I-Man and go, I thought I'm playing the Masters. I didn't realize I was at a Woodstock reunion.
But he looked at me and he said, "Damn, you look comfortable," and I was extremely comfortable. You know, but I was in my world and they're in their world. But it was a fabulous trip. I mean, I'll never forget it. It's probably the most important sporting event that I've ever been to that I probably never would have got the opportunity.
And what would be number 2, I-Man?
Anything in Jordan Hare.
And when was the last time you were in Jordan Hare watching a football?
The last time I was in Jordan Hare, Georgia beat Auburn. Auburn was throwing to the end zone for a touchdown. It's the first and only time I've seen Auburn beaten Jordan Hare.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. But it's all on TV now. It's all on the SEC network. Paul, I support the SEC network. I mean, I'm here. Where's my Zippo lighter? Where's my SEC shirt? I mean, we're talking about the Auburn Tigers. I'm bringing something relevant. I'm not talking about you don't like LSU. You don't like Tennessee. You don't like Arkansas. You don't like South Carolina. Paul, you like them all. As long as they win and you love them. But when they hit that 500 and below, you're kind of through with them because there's other people that are 500 and better. Now, you have a great day, Ward Damn Eagle. We're only getting fat.
Steve is in Nashville. Steve, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Paul.
Hi there.
Thanks for your show.
Thank you.
Yeah, I went to Tennessee about the same time you did, so just wondered how you thought this season might go.
I think it's going to go pretty well. I think a bowl game would be great. I think he's inherited a mess, and I think he's done a great job. I'm talking about Jeremy Pruitt here of turning the page and not sitting around like others have in the past. Not so much at Tennessee, but other schools talking about what they walked into. He took the job, and he's taking it seriously.
Okay. Who do you think might surprise us in the SEC this year? If you had to take a wild stab or wag at it.
I think Booger may have hit the team. Texas A&M, I think, could be really surprising. I think South Carolina will be, and Mississippi State are my teams that right now may at least threaten the next level. Florida, I think, is going to be a lot better too.
Okay. Hey, when you were in school up there, did you ever go to Louis Inn restaurant? I know I can't advertise for them, but
I believe I did. Yes.
Okay. I just wondered. My dad used to go up there when he was in school up there too, so I just wondered if you did.
Yeah. No. Of course, you got to remember something, Steve, about my college years. Much of it I don't remember.
Well, I don't know that I remember all that much either, but.
I remember the first day, and then I remember getting my degree, and the other 4 years are a blur.
Well, the only thing about the show I was wondering about, and I don't get to tune in to your show as much as I'd like to, but where's Tammy been?
Good question. I get that question from friends of mine out when I'm out and about. I really don't know where she's been. I suspect she's. Last time I heard from her, she was going through some problems. I bet we'll hear from her again soon. I hope we do. Listen, great to hear from you, Steve. We're going to talk to another Steve in a moment. Steve Spurrier. Is he getting back into coaching? One of the many questions for the HBC.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Next, you're holding up the line, ma'am.
What did you say?
You're next in line for the water slide, ma'am. Feet forward and enjoy the ride.
Okay, dearie. This does look fun. Whee! Oh, you melted me. I've melted.
The Wicked Witch of the West on a water slide? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
See what you've done. Oh!
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
And we welcome all of you back. So delighted to welcome Steve Spurrier to the program. Always cool to have Coach on, and especially on a day when he might be watching golf. Coach Spurrier, a pleasure to have you on. What's going on?
Well, Paul, I had your show on for a minute ago, and McElroy kept talking, so I flipped it back over to the golf. And, so I'm watching Jordan Spieth get ready to hit a putt right now. One of the later holes up at Augusta.
Well, because you may have seen some of that. I mean, and you've managed quarterback situations quite well, and it's certainly always been a subject of great conversation. What do you do if you're Nick Saban with two really good quarterbacks?
Well, I think a lot of people have said it is Jalen Hurts is such a good athlete, and I mean he can play running back, he can play tight end, up back, he can do all kinds of stuff. But that Tua can throw the ball. He's electrifying. You know what I mean? And I just think both of them can get on the field. It would be a good way to do it. But I don't know if that's the direction they're going to go. But I think most people would think that would solve the problem right there.
Coach, one more thing on that. A lot of speculation that both sides want an answer, and you've been there. I mean, you're ultimately the head coach, whether it's Steve Spurrier, a Hall of Fame coach, or Nick Saban, a Hall of Fame coach. I mean, how do you keep everybody at bay and drag this thing out? Because you really don't want to commit yourself, do you?
I don't think he has to say anything much right now. Before the season, a lot of times we had two guys fighting for it. Usually a week or two before the season starts, name one. Some coaches like to wait to the game itself. I don't know. I don't think it makes any difference either way, to tell you the truth. But I just think both of them will end up playing a lot in the coming year.
Talking to Steve Spurrier, I know you're going to. You've been a big help already to Dan Mullen at the University of Florida. I know you're going to take part in his coaching clinic. I think is it this weekend?
Yeah, Friday morning, 10:30 here at the indoor facility. So glad to say a few words to the high school coaches.
What would your assessment be so far of what you've seen on the practice field and of Coach Mullen? Obviously, we all know him well.
Yeah, Paul, there's a lot of enthusiasm down here. Dan is a down-to-earth guy. He's got enthusiasm. He's coaching. The receivers are getting coached like they hadn't been coached before, quarterbacks. So I told him when he got here, Florida's offense has been so stagnant, as you know. I think we were 116, 114, 112 the last 3 years, that America is going to think Dan Mullen is an offensive genius, because we're going to get better on offense. And there's some talent here, too. There's a lot of talent, and I don't know which quarterback will play. There is definitely a competition going on right now about that. But Dan has said, hey, there's a lot of good ball players here. They're eager to learn. They want to do well. So there is a little air of excitement down here.
Coach, where did it go wrong? Because there's been a lot of talent there, but it just doesn't seem like it was done correctly or developed. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the University of Florida, after all. I don't need to tell you.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, the offense was just not very good. 2 years ago, the defense was fifth in the nation, and Florida was winning Eastern divisions. Coach Mack won 2 divisions, which that's not too shabby right there. The game with Alabama wasn't competitive, either one, but the offense just never could quite catch up. And then the first 2 years, Florida was winning every close game going. I think at one time they said the Gators had won 9 out of 10 games decided by 7 or less points. And then all of a sudden last year, they lost a couple. We lost a couple to LSU, and Texas A&M came in and beat us. So, and then the death threats, and then all of a sudden it blew up, and we got a new coach in here.
Coach, let me get your assessment of the SEC, because there are new coaches everywhere, of course, at A&M, at Arkansas. We mentioned Florida, Tennessee. You know most of these guys, I assume. How long does it take? I realize every situation is different, but what would you tell fans of Tennessee, for example, who are coming off an 0-8 SEC mark?
Yeah, that was not a good year for the Vols. Well, I would tell the Vols you can't be any worse, that's for sure, in conference play. So they got nowhere to go but up. But, yeah, everybody wants to win, and everybody's doing all they can, and everybody usually preseason, optimism, hopes are high. But in the final analysis, everybody can't win because we all play each other. So it's not as easy as sometimes the fans think it is. And those teams that know how to win, have exceptional talent, a little bit better than the others, and have winning traditions, those are generally the ones that end up at the top. Looks like Georgia's going to be tough again with the way they're recruiting and so forth. And I think the Gators are going to fight for the East this year also.
Do you really?
Well, they're going to fight for it. I don't know who's going to win it, but they got a fighting chance.
Talking to Steve Spurrier. Steve, before you go, I do want to ask you about this report a couple weeks ago. You know where I'm going here. A lot of speculation about you getting back into coaching with this new league. What is the latest there?
Okay, Paul. Yeah, I have been asked about it, and I really like the concept they have going. It's called the Alliance of American Football. They got a TV deal with CBS. They want to have football games that last 2.5 hours instead of 4.5. Emphasis on safety. There'll be no kickoffs, no extra points, go for 2 every time. Some new rules in place. And, try not to stop the game with so many replays and commercials and all that kind of stuff. Keep the game moving. So that's the concept there. Who's going to play in the league? Mainly maybe players that got cut by the NFL teams or some guys that are out there right now that think they can play and probably can play. There's a thin line between guys that don't make the NFL and are good football players, as we all know. And there's really no minor league for football. If you don't make the NBA, you can go to Europe and play. Major League Baseball, they got minor leagues, guy can work his way up, so forth. So there's no competition at the time this league is going to play. This alliance is mainly what it's called. The alliance is going to play in February, March, April. So they're not trying to challenge the NFL or college football. Just an opportunity for guys to play, and I think the American public has proven that they will watch a good football game if it's on television. So that's a whole lot I know about it right now.
Well, I mean, certainly you have interest. Have you been contacted? And if you are officially offered, will you accept?
Well, I've had some contact. I don't mind saying that, and we'll see how it plays out. We'll see how it plays out. I will say most of my close friends have said you ought to go for that thing. You need a challenge in life, and sometimes I think they may be right. But we'll see how it all plays out here in the next few days. Okay.
Well, okay. I mean, so obviously you miss coaching.
Yeah, I miss the challenge. Yeah, I think maybe watching the Gator offense the last couple of years has given me an itch to try to do that again. But again, we'll see how it all plays out, Paul.
Okay, I don't want to negotiate on the air. You've given us the answer. No, we'll let you off the hook.
But yeah, I do have an interest in it. I can honestly say that.
Okay, well we hope you get back. We miss you. And
thank you. And I consider you a friend. Most everyone has said that. You ought to jump at that if you get a chance. So we'll see how it plays out.
Well, we can't wait. Coach, thanks for coming on.
Okay, Paul. Good to talk to you again.
You got it, Coach. Steve Spurrier in mid-season form, giving us the coach speak about wanting to get back in the game. Understand? Sounds like it's as close to a green light as possible there with Steve Spurrier. We will continue with more of your phone calls at 855-242-7285 when we come back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back. Let's take some more phone calls at 855-242-7285. John is in St. Louis. Hello, John.
Paul, how are you today, sir?
We are doing well. Thank you for the call.
Paul, I want to explore the Texas, what I'm going to call the Texas swing option with the SEC. I think I think perhaps the dialogue and perception or the interpretation on the revenue potential and the big kahuna, I'll put it that way, for the SEC needs to move west a little bit. And, I called last week and talked a little bit about there's 4 programs that, would basically take the Power 5 conference down to 4. And basically the SEC could then essentially rule obviously the football side of things, even more so than they do now. And I'm talking about bringing in like TCU, Texas, Houston, and SMU. And I want to talk a little bit more about that with you.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Well, I mean, I guess where are you coming from? You don't agree with me? You don't?
No. Listen, that's why I want you to talk. Because I don't agree with any of this, so I don't want to interrupt your party.
Well, basically, like you talked about last week, Paul. You talked about the Big 12 doesn't have a TV contract.
The Big 12 has a TV contract. They don't have their own network.
Yeah, they don't have their own network. What you could do is you can put the Big 12 on the run completely if the SEC would do something like this. Plus, you're sending a message.
John, let me go back to this. So, and you're suggesting how many schools?
I'm suggesting 4 schools.
And your 4 schools again are Houston, TCU,
SMU, and Texas.
Well, John, listen. First of all, SMU wouldn't amount to a hill of beans. Nobody really, no legitimate conference wants them in there. They're not that good.
TCU, they used to have a heck of a team with Dickerson and
John,
the Ponies back in the early 80s.
It is 2018. It is not 1982.
That's true.
As far as the University of Texas, not happening. They're not coming in. They don't need it. I don't mean to be disrespectful here. They have their own network. They don't need anybody else's network. So cross them off the list. And now you're down to TCU and Baylor. Is that right? Or Houston?
No,
TCU and Houston.
TCU and Houston.
Houston did not even make the cut in the Big 12. They brought nothing to the table, television-wise, or anything-wise. TCU to me is the only viable candidate of that group.
Well, I think you just told me what you thought.
I did. And
Paul, it's always good talking to you, and I'm going to let you go here. I appreciate the comment.
No, listen, I'm just
that's what the show's all about.
I don't mean to give you absolutes, but I swim in this every day, and this is how I view it. And this is not pie in the sky stuff. Some of this stuff is just impossible to pull off. Frankly, TCU would be impossible too right now because of the contract it signed with the Big 12.
I'm looking at a long-term vision, too. Not only for, we always talk about SEC, you're talking football. I'm thinking basketball and longer-term Texas.
Hold on a second.
Especially Eastern Texas.
Let me give you one more piece of evidence here.
Okay.
When the Big 12 in 2010 talked about a merger with the Pac-12, this was a legitimate story, you may remember. Texas, A&M, Oklahoma, a number of schools were going to merge with the Big 12. They did not they were not going to invite Kansas. Now, Kansas is one of the 3 or 4 best basketball schools in America, and they wanted nothing to do with them because basketball is not what stirs this drink. It is football, and Kansas football is embarrassing.
It is. It's been terrible since Mark Mangino was, for whatever reason, for a number of reasons, that all came to an end 7-8 years ago. I agree with you there. And just one last, I remember exactly, what you're talking about in 2010 because of the University of Missouri fan. We didn't know where we were going to end up. But anyway, Paul, it's always good talking to you. It's just something I was going to throw out there.
I'm always fun for a conversation, but I hate to be the killjoy here with the reality. Hey, thanks for the call. Millie is up next.
Hi, Paul. How are you doing today?
Millie, how are you?
Oh, doing just fine. I was hearing what Mr. Spurrier was saying, and I hope this time it works. I know the USFL didn't work, and I hope this one actually does work. Don't you?
Well, listen, I'm not as optimistic about this league as my green jacket friends in the other room. I've covered about 5 of these leagues, and after about 20 minutes of watching the first game, most people are pretty bored.
Well, it seems like they just change things around a lot, and you just never can tell what's going to happen.
By the way, I saw the green jacket boys. They were not very. They were beginning smirkly with my comments.
Oh, they have their opinions and you have yours. Oh, by the way, why aren't you wearing a green jacket like they are? I think you'd look really cool in it.
Yeah, but because it's disrespectful to Augusta National to rip off a green jacket, and I hope.
Okay, LeBron.
Okay, well, I think
I have a blue jacket on.
Millie, Mark and I are members at Augusta National.
Oh, you are, huh?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, listen, I was kind of wondering one thing. This weekend, you're not going to be, guys aren't going to be working this weekend. Why don't you guys all go together and see the last part of it? Wouldn't it be fun?
I'm busy.
Oh, you're busy, huh? Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I just wanted to catch base with you guys.
I'm doing some spring cleaning this weekend, Millie.
Oh, I wish I were there to help. Sometimes it's a lot of fun if you have somebody to help.
Oh, yeah, spring cleaning with Millie. That sounds like a new reality show. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
It was Big YOG, bring your own guts.
This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
We welcome all of you back to the program. One more hour to go, and we are ready for this final hour with more phone calls.
Go to it. Quiet, please. This is the 6 o'clock call segment. On the phone from Lexington, South Carolina, Lewis Cobb.
Thank you, Lewis. Welcome to our program. Lewis from Lexington. Good afternoon, Lewis.
Yes, sir. Enjoying the show. The ball coach is always a good guest, don't you think?
He's fantastic. And by the way, Lewis, I was pleasantly surprised to open the mail yesterday or the day before and get your Dan Jenkins book. I can't thank you enough.
I hope you hadn't read it.
I have not. No. And by the way, I grew up a Dan Jenkins fan. I met him once at Augusta, and I could barely talk. I started with Semi-Tough, but somehow I missed this book. But I have taking it home this weekend, and I will be reading it. Thank you so much.
Well, there's a lot of great trivia in that book about Bill Bryan and Alabama, and I thought you'd enjoy it.
Now, Dan, literally, as you know, nobody could write like Dan Jenkins, but I studied, especially when he wrote college football before he went to professional golf.
Yes, sir. Well, I don't know if you happened to read the little note I sent, but
I did. I sure did.
My 87-year-old aunt, she wrote that letter for me.
Oh, wow.
And I just wanted to tell you, she's a big Alabama fan. She grew up in Eastlake, outside of Birmingham, and she went to high school with Bobby Bowden.
Did she really?
Yes, sir. And I'm just so surprised her memory is so good. She told me the day she wrote that letter that she also went to high school with Harry Gilmer.
Oh, my.
He was a running back on the 1945 team that went undefeated and won the Rose Bowl.
He is forever held in Alabama lore. Famous name.
Yes, sir. And he lived in her neighborhood, and she knew him pretty well. And I found it interesting. Army won the national championship that year.
Did they really?
Yes, sir. Alabama went undefeated, won the Rose Bowl. They beat Southern Cal, and Army won the national championship. But anyway, great show.
Well, listen, again, thank you again. It meant so much to me that you thought of us. I really appreciate it greatly.
Well, when you're on a plane sometime and have the time to read it, you will enjoy it.
I will. Certainly. You better believe it. I love to read. Lewis, thank you. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Enjoyed the show. Thank you, sir.
You got it. That's really cool. Thank you very, very much. Let's continue with more calls. Curtis is in Tuscaloosa. Curtis, welcome to the show.
Hey, Paul, how you doing today?
We are doing great, Curtis.
Yeah, Paul, I want to talk a little bit about Tennessee football, and I got a couple of questions for you, too. do you remember when Philip Fulmer was the coach at Tennessee, and Cutcliffe was the offensive coordinator?
Sure.
I look at that span when he was there before he went to Ole Miss. Tennessee was what you would say reverent in football. When Cutcliffe left, the offense just kind of
I think he left in the '98 season.
Yeah,
and the program had success, but it was never as consistent as it was when. I mean, Cutcliffe and Fulmer. By the way, I read a story this afternoon that Fulmer may be getting an extension, which he deserves, by the way, as the athletic director. But that was an unbelievable. You think about this: you had Cutcliffe on the offensive side, and John Chavis on the defensive side.
Right. And wait, did he get another job?
John Chavis is in Arkansas.
Oh, okay. Chavis, and I'm going to tell you a player that Chavis coached when he was at Tennessee. Come from my hometown, which is Chattanooga, Tennessee. Came out of Howard High School. One of the greatest defensive players in football. Name was Reggie White.
Oh, my goodness. Reggie White, the minister.
Yeah.
I can't talk Tennessee football in the 30s, 40s, and 50s like some of my friends, but since that era, nobody's come close to Reggie White.
Oh no, one of the greatest, miss him. I mean, Reggie was a great guy. We ever met him. And another thing about Tennessee football, everybody got opinion. I'm glad Foreman is back in some kind of capacity with the university. Love the guy. When they talk about the coaches, the only guy I feel that was over his head was Dooley. Was never a big fan of Dooley, but they talk about Lane Kiffin, and I'm gonna just tell you how I feel about Lane Kiffin. Kiffin did great the year he coached us.
He did, and
a lot of Tennessee fans got mad because he left. That team that he coached that year, and I was at the game at Brian Denny here.
Oh yeah,
when Cody blocked the field goal. They almost beat the national championship Alabama team that year.
Well, I mean, it took a miraculous play for that. I mean, just imagine what if that had been different. But I mean, not only that. Remember, they played Florida a really good game when everyone thought Florida would win by 40 points. That was Kiffin did a good job. I've talked to Lane many times about that, and he, I always thought it was overdone, the Tennessee anger toward him. I know it's finally subsided a little bit, but he really did a good job.
Yeah, I didn't get mad about him, Kiffin leaving, because, hey, just like you, Paul, you on the show, you got a dream job. That was that man's dream job.
Listen, you're right, and I think when fans want to be snarky, put yourself in that position. He had to take that job. Now, he regrets it because in the end, even though I thought he did a pretty credible job out there, he inherited a situation that was a program that was going on probation, and he did fairly well if you compare to what happened after that, but by Southern Cal standards, it just wasn't enough.
No. Yeah, I understand. And, like you said, hopefully Jeremy going to get him back. But then with Butch, I liked it, Butch. And the last 2 years, and I'm not using no excuses. And because Butch eventually shot himself in the foot. But Butch brought him back to some kind of reverence. But the last 2 years, Butch had a lot of injuries that he just didn't have.
He had the year before, he really didn't have a team when it was all over.
Well, and I think he did, considering that. And I think when I watched them in a few games last year, I thought that them boys really played over their heads for Butch. I mean, they lost a lot of games, but they were competitive like the first half of games against some teams. But they just didn't have the depth to hold up. And the last thing, Paul, if I get to talk to you tomorrow, you have a great weekend. And you know what? My weekend is going to end this Saturday, don't you? Not this Saturday, this Sunday.
What's that?
New Orleans Superdome for WrestleMania.
Oh, my. Is that this weekend?
Yes, Sunday. New Orleans. I'll be in New Orleans Sunday.
I asked Kubiak, I said, is this the weekend of WrestleMania? He looked at me like I was insane.
Yeah.
That's something we never expected really to hear you ask.
I'm going.
Oh,
you're going to WrestleMania?
Yeah, I mean, Curtis and I. Curtis, what time are you leaving Sunday?
I'm leaving about 8:00 Sunday morning.
I'll be there. Don't leave without me.
All right.
Okay, Curtis.
Paul,
thank you very much. You have a good time.
I'd love to meet you, Paul. I'm looking forward to meeting you.
Hey, listen, guaranteed I will be in Tuscaloosa quite a few times.
Okay.
Look forward to it, Curtis. Thank you very much.
All right,
you guys are laughing at me. I had a friend in college. He swore about WrestleMania, and I nearly went to one time. You guys don't realize how big this is. I know you're.
Hold on, Paul.
I know you guys are.
There's a Jimmy Hart little action figure in there. Okay, you know whose that is?
I know who Jimmy Hart is.
All right, that was my action figure. I was a big wrestling guy.
Okay, so I'm talking about going to WrestleMania. You guys in there.
It's just something I didn't expect to hear you say.
You elite snobs wearing the green jacket. I mean,
Paul, you got to put context in. This is where context is important. We were all sitting around the newsroom, and it wasn't like we were talking about wrestling. You just nonchalantly looked over and you said, is WrestleMania this weekend?
Because I know it always comes around the time of the Final Four and the Masters, and I just didn't know.
Just surprised us.
Well, I mean, you guys act like I'm, Jim and I are living in a cave in our mom's basement. I mean, I get out every week or two or three.
Paul, you know the only sport I play: golf, tennis, and croquet.
Croquet.
You guys have actually turned me off on golf.
Just wait. It's only the first round.
Yeah, I've tried to sit here and concentrate today, and every time I go to you, Jordan Spieth on 16.
He's actually on 15.
Okay, whatever. Rory's on 16. This is a show of the people, not a bunch of golf snobs like Mark and John. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back to the program. I don't know. I better see if we can get a sober up here. Let's go to the phones and talk to Legend.
What's up, Coach?
Legend, you're hearing all this wild expectations for every school right now?
You know, that's why I love our rivals right there, Paul, because really they're satisfied with just being mediocre. Let's take Auburn, for example, Paul. In the last 4 years, Gus Malzahn was 8-5, 7-6, 8-5 and 9-4. And what happened?
Give him a new contract.
They gave him $49 million.
Give that man some money.
Give him some money. Some real money. Some real money down there to Gus Malzahn.
And by the way, Legend, part of that was to keep him from going to Arkansas.
Well, I'm glad they did. Just listen, you know what, Paul? Me and the Godfather, Danny Sheridan, was talking about this today.
Ooh, Danny Sheridan sighting.
Yeah, he reminded me I hadn't called the show, and Vito wasn't very happy. So you know Vito, Paul. So
I know the drill.
Yeah. So listen, if you went 8-5, 7-6, 8-5, and 9-4 at Alabama, you wouldn't get $49 million. You get 49 bricks through your window. That's what you would get.
Well, first of all, Legend, you wouldn't get that far.
Exactly, Paul. Exactly. Now you got Georgia. They ain't nothing but an Elvis impersonator. I seen Clay Travis say the other day, this is so true. The 4 most disappointing teams when it comes to
Legend. I don't think you're allowed to say Clay Travis's name on this show.
Oh, okay. The idiot from Memphis did it.
He's actually from Nashville. I'm just kidding.
Well, anyway, wherever he's from. He said, but I agree with him on that. He said the 4 most disappointing teams in the last 50 years of the national championship, 1 is Michigan, 2 is Georgia, which I agree with completely, 3 is Notre Dame, 4 is Texas. I mean, Georgia's the biggest Elvis impersonator they ever was. It's ridiculous to come on here like Daryl and talk about how Kirby Smart is better than Nick Saban. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life, dude. And, hey, Paul, I got something else, too, before I get too far. Let's go into another subject. Congratulations, brother, on your inductee into the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame. Well deserved, Paul. Well deserved, brother.
That's nice of you to say that. Thank you very much.
You deserve it, brother. You deserve it. If ever, hey, you are the voice of our generation in sports, brother. A guy told me the other day, well, sometimes you be hating on Finebaum and then you love him. I said, that's what's so great about Finebaum. Everybody loves him and hates him. I mean, that's why he is who he is, man. Come on, that's why he's the bomb. He's the bomb, brother. But I just wanted to congratulate you, dude. Well deserved. And Paul's eye girl talking about the radio show yesterday. You know, I'm loving the radio show. It's going great. He's talking all the time, man. He
sounded jealous, didn't he?
Do what, Paul?
Has that man ever made a call to the show where he didn't mention you or Jim from Tuscaloosa?
Never. The dude is obsessed. The dude is obsessed, Paul. And I'm starting to worry. I mean, this dude, all he says is Jim, legend. I think the dude is obsessed or something, Paul. Do you think we can get him some therapy? This guy needs some therapy,
Hey,
Paul.
let me ask you a question, Legend.
Man?
Legend, do you think there's a psychiatrist in Alabama that would let him in his office?
Hey, Dr. Phil wouldn't even let this dude on his couch.
Dr. Phil goes, no way.
No way, Dr. Phil wouldn't even let this dude on his couch right here, man.
There are some things even a psychiatrist won't do.
That's exactly right, Paul. I mean, that's a malpractice suit waiting to happen, trying to mess with that little pea brain of that dude. That's a malpractice suit waiting to happen right there. But all these, you know what else I'm sick of hearing, Paul?
What's that?
How South Carolina going to do this year? You don't talk enough about South Carolina. I'm so ready for Paul Finebaum just to raise up and tell the truth to all these South Carolina fans and just be honest. You suck. You've always sucked. You will continue to suck. If somehow every team in the East stumbles and you get to Georgia, you're going to get beat by 40. This is who you are, South Carolina. Stop calling this show talking about Powell, South Carolina. We know how you're going to do. How have you always done? I mean, just get it through your head. Paul, we keep winning championships while these fools keep trying to figure out. Before I get off, all y'all, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, they call this show Miami Kiss the Ring, man. Love you, Paul.
Thank you. Great call. As always, let's continue with more calls. Chuck is in California on a Thursday afternoon. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Paul, thank you so much for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Big fan of the show. Hey, Paul, I am a big college football fan, and I'm one of these people out here on the West Coast who misses the traditional rivalry games on Thanksgiving. And my question of ponderance to you, sir, is what's it going to take for Texas to play Texas A&M again on Thanksgiving Day or Friday after Thanksgiving Day?
You know, I think, first of all, you have to get that game rescheduled. I don't know if you can go back to Thanksgiving because that has now become an SEC game for A&M, and I don't know if A&M would want to play that game at the end of the season. But I could see that game being at the beginning or maybe sometime in September. But I don't think Texas would want to go much beyond the third week. They have Oklahoma, usually the second week in October. I agree. That was a great traditional game, but so many of those games are now gone.
That's what's sad about it. One of my favorite family traditions was sitting down with my family and watching Texas battle A&M and just seeing some of these classic games being played, especially during the 80s when A&M had their run there for the.
Oh yeah, no, that I mean, it's so a great play and movie. We're done with that game in the backdrop, as you probably remember.
Exactly. Yeah, it's fascinating, too. When I was 11 years old, I sat down in my parents' living room and watched the greatest college football game I've ever seen, and that was number 1 Texas versus number 2 Arkansas.
Oh, 1969.
And by golly, several years later, 2015, they make a movie about the late Freddie Steinmark.
Oh yeah.
And that's a great memory. For
You're right, Chuck. As a young person growing up, there are indelible moments in that game. And I was in Arkansas, in Little Rock, speaking at their quarterback club a couple of years ago, and they had just honored, I think, the Arkansas team from '69, and they still can't talk about that game in the state of Arkansas.
I bet that would have been number 2 for them if they won it, because I'm actually going to remember them winning in '64 in a classic game in Austin over Texas.
Just for the audience who obviously most of them probably were not alive in 1969. That game, the backstory of that game was originally supposed to be in October, and Rune Arledge, the former president of ABC Sports, somehow was incredibly prescient in moving the game to the end of the season, and it turned out to be a 1-versus-2 game. The president of the United States arrived at that game as well.
I remember that vividly, Paul. I remember Marine Corps One landing there in Little Rock and President Nixon getting out and going to the game and sitting between George Bush. And I can't remember who the representative from the state was.
Our friend John Hayes will not want to hear this, but Penn State was also undefeated that year. And after the game, President Nixon just declared the Longhorns the national champion. So,
I remember that vividly. Joe Pa wasn't very happy about that. I remember that. Yeah. But thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. What a great call. And that's that was before Nixon got into trouble. He still had some clout with the sports media. We will take a break. More of your phone calls at 855-242-7285. Final 30 minutes on a Thursday, early April. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
I don't know how else to say this, so I'll just say it.
What is it, Linda?
I think we should see other people.
Are you breaking up with me? On a roller coaster?
Well, we do have a lot of fun. Maybe we should stay together.
An emotional roller coaster? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I just need a little me time.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Welcome back. 30 minutes to go right here, and we're continuing your call. It's been a good show. Steve Spurrier was with us earlier. What an entertaining conversation that was. Let's get back to the calls. And David is in South Carolina. Hello, David.
Hey, Paul. How you doing today?
We are doing great. Thank you for calling.
Thank you. Second time I got through this week. As you know, I called Tuesday and bashed South Carolina football a little bit.
I do
remember. So I want to thank Legend from Alabama for doing the same, because obviously I'm not the only one that thinks that way. And now I got a question for you. Of course, me being a big Tennessee Volunteer fan, we all saw what Kirby Smart did in year 2. I haven't caught the show as much as I want to, so you may have discussed this, you may have not. How about Jeremy Pruitt? Does he have the talent to do what Kirby Smart's done in a short time, or is it going to take a while?
I don't think he has it the first year. Now he's recruiting well, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I'll say this again. I think he's done about as well as he can do. I really like the fact he has Philip Fulmer down the hall. That's invaluable for a young coach to have one of the greatest coaches in SEC history available at all times, and I think Philip is. And I just think it's going to take a great recruiting year and to get in a position to make a run. It's hard to predict without really knowing exactly what the quarterback – I mean, I think I know what the quarterback situation is, but it's impossible to predict exactly what that team is going to look like. They were just so bad at the end of last season.
Yes, they were. I kind of did like Butch Jones. I think he did a good job turning it around. But I don't feel that he had the pressure at Central Michigan and at Cincinnati that he had in Knoxville. So congrats to him for turning it around.
You know what, David? In the end, Butch Jones was a solid football coach who recruited well, but he cracked under the bright lights, and I think that caused him more damage than anything else.
I agree with you 100%. All right, go Vols. Let's see what happens, and thank you for taking my call.
Great to hear from you. Thank you very, very much. Gator is in Memphis, and you are next up. How are you, Gator?
Hey, what's up, man?
We're doing great. Thank you.
First-time caller, long-time listener, and a huge Gator fan. And I just want to want your intake about what you think the Gators' season might be like this year.
A lot better than last year, but you could have walked down the street and asked a stray dog, and he would have given you the same answer. I think there are a couple of turning point games. I think that game against Tennessee early on is going to be a bellwether game in terms of can they get over the hump, and I think right now you probably have to think the Gators can get that game. And then what do a couple other games look like? I mean, to me, there are 3 or 4 swing games that will determine whether Florida has a really good year or just improvement. But listen, Spurrier was with us earlier talking about Dan Mullen. I think everyone agrees he is really one of the finer coaches in the SEC, and it won't be long.
We're on our way to Gainesville next week to see the blue and orange game. Can't wait.
Well, I don't blame you. Thank you very, very much. Good to hear from you. How about Larry in Alabama? How are you, Larry?
What's up, man? Hey, I went in Chevron, brother, and I had a guy, his name's Philip from Wilsonville, Paul, and he recognized me from the show off the picture.
So you went into the Chevron in Wilsonville?
No, in Columbiana.
Oh, Columbiana. Okay.
But he knew me.
We're talking Shelby County, Alabama, for you folks who don't keep up with geography.
Yeah, this is the city of Shelby where I live. I'm the mayor of Shelby.
I knew that. But Columbiana is the county seat. As you know, I used to live in Shelby County, so I know Columbiana well since I spent 5 days in Columbiana on jury duty a couple of years ago.
Oh, that's terrible. I hate jury duty, and it's hard to get out of.
Well, you know what? It was actually pretty interesting. It was not long before I left town. Did I ever tell you this story, Larry? So all my friends say, "Well, you can get out of it. Why don't you call in some favors?" I go, "No, I'm not going to do that. I'll go, and there's not a chance in the world that I will end up on a jury." So I walk in, and it turned out that I was selected for a grand jury.
Ooh!
And the judge, and his name escapes me, goes, "Anybody here have a reason why you can't serve on this grand jury?" And I'm looking around. There's no way I'm standing up in front of about 300 people. But I was assuming that this judge would look at me and go, this guy probably. And he was staring me down, just daring me to stand up. So I just said, you know what? I'm going to take my chances. So I get put on the grand jury. And believe it or not, I had the time of my life. It was really a blast.
Some of them can be very interesting,
I tried to save one guy. This guy was testifying in front of the grand jury. This old guy, and he was indicting himself. I actually tried to. I said, "Hey, buddy, do you realize you don't have to answer these questions?" And the DA looked at me like, "Hey, man, you're not in charge of this room." But I felt so badly for this guy because he ended up getting indicted on some horrendous charge. But
oh yeah, well that shows you're a brave man, Paul. You ain't scared of nothing.
They took us every day to some really good restaurant there. What was the name of this place? With a B or
Shelby
something.
County Pawpaws.
No, it was like Bernard's or something.
Who?
Bernard. I don't know. It was really a fancy place in Columbiana.
Yeah, it is on the corner where that's where all the coat and tie people go.
Oh yeah, no, this was like a white tablecloth restaurant in Columbiana, Alabama.
Yeah, it's like rednecks walk by, scratching their butts and looking. And then all the high rollers, suit and ties. It's great, man. But hey, I see you got another groomer in there with a green jacket.
Hey, Larry, the best part of being on the grand jury, I think they paid us $13 a day.
Yeah, that's what you need to pay that groomer that just come back.
Oh, hold on a second. You talking about Kubiak?
Big Ten John. Back,
Big Ten John.
Yeah, another groomer with a green jacket that don't know nothing about golf.
Larry. Don't know nothing about golf, Larry?
About golf.
You know what I do know? Nothing. I'm watching right now, like Larry and Shelby with a 4-pack of tall boys. Jordan Spieth is dialed in.
He is.
Well, I'm telling you, Stinson's gonna win it, but
No, he's
I'll
not.
tell you something. Big Ten John, let me tell you something, you non-golfing goober. Let me tell you something. I will play. Me and Rich will play you and that other goomer for those green jackets in a tournament. You can name the place. We'll go anywhere you want to go, Jack.
I'm in, Larry, and I look forward to the 18th green when you've got to put it on me. That's going to be the best part. You're going to have to put it on my back, Larry.
You keep talking, I may start out on the first hole slapping you around, Jack.
I like that. Maybe we play for this, and then Larry has to put the jacket on you, and Rich has to admit that Alabama didn't win in 73.
Oh, it's on. And y'all want to get a little tournament for those jackets? I know they probably going to smell bad. Y'all been wearing them. Big Ten stinks up everything they touch. Big Ten.
That was pretty funny.
Hey, Larry, you had your shot at Big Ten John in Atlanta, and you whiffed.
You see, Paul, it's talk like that why we don't let someone like Larry from Shelby in Augusta.
Oh.
You're not welcome here at the Masters, Larry.
I've been to Augusta, Jack. I got news for you. I drove by that place all the time.
Congratulations!
You drove by, or you went in?
Yeah.
So, Larry, did you turn off Washington Road into Magnolia Lane?
They tried to get me in there, but I said no. I'm not interested. They want people like
Wait a minute. You weren't interested in going to the Masters?
No, not the way they treat dilly-dillies. No. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'd give $1 million to be up in the middle of the 18th hole with Tiger Woods putting and holler, dilly,
Yeah, Larry, just try that one time, okay?
Yeah.
And you'll need $1 million to get you out on bond.
I know, I probably would, but hey, it's be worth it. Other than slapping Big Ten John around and that other little critter next to him.
I got to hang up on you, Larry. You had a shot at Big Ten John, and you chickened out. So don't give me this 5 o'clock in the afternoon 14 Bud Lights talk. Okay.
Hey, check it out, Jack. He backed out of it. He said it himself. I would have slammed them through that table, and that wrestling match. Hey. Let's me and you get out there in that ring, Big Ten John, and Mark.
What about it, John? What about it?
Larry, what I would do is, all I'd have to do is do about 5 circles in the ring, and you'd fall on your face just dying, Larry. You couldn't make it 30 seconds in the ring with me, pal.
It's on now. It's on. I'll call my buddy McMahon.
You would be breathing heavy from climbing into the ring, Larry.
What are you running for? Hey.
We would have oxygen for Larry, John.
Listen. All right, Big Ten John, it's on.
It's on, brother.
McMahon, I'm going to call McMahon and set it up. Can you be there Saturday?
We're not using gloves either. It's bare knuckle.
Hey, Larry, what kind of oxygen do you want?
I like the kind that's got a little aroma to it. It's better.
Okay. You want it?
We'll call I-Man.
Look, hi man. I don't be
Larry, how about this? I'll let you bring a 3-wood into the ring, and I'll just use my hands.
Oh, yeah. You're going to need something. Your hands to pull that 3-wood out from somewhere. How about that?
Okay. I think we need to call a truce here. Thanks, Larry. Appreciate the call.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back to the show. James is in New York. You're next up. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul. How are you?
We are doing great. Thank you for the call.
Hey, just calling to give you an update. I just got back from Augusta. I was out there yesterday.
Tell us about it.
3. Oh, it's fantastic. It was the first time I've ever been there. It's like adult Disneyland. The way
it's incredible.
All the people that work there, they are so incredibly. Everybody is so incredibly polite, and the course is just really unbelievable. I played college golf, and I played courses all over the country, and this place, hands down, it's so beautiful with all the flowers on all the different holes. It's really amazing.
What did you? I'm really curious. Always ask people that go there for the first time. Take me through your day.
Yeah, so we got there. We were told to hit the gift shop first. Did that real quick, and then we just started walking the course. That was having never been there. I really wanted to see the whole course and see all the holes and kind of approach it as I would play it. So we walked a good portion of the course, about the front 9, and then we got back and went over to the par 3 tournament. and got to see that for a couple holes. Got to see a lot of players come through that. And then, because most of the players stopped playing on the course about 3.
Right.
And then after we watched the par 3 for a while, we went back and hit the back 9 and wanted to see Amen Corner and the whole rest of the course. But what a fantastic day.
No, I tell you, walking down the 10th fairway, I mean, it's just a spectacular hole as you're way up there at the top of the hill looking down. And when you make that right turn into 11 and you get to 12 and 13, it literally will take your breath away.
We actually stayed at the grandstand that overlooks the 11th green and the 12th tee, and that whole area. We just sat there and just looked at the area for about 20 minutes because A, to get a rest, but B, that corner is just so beautiful. It's really
incredible.
amazing.
No, there's nothing like it. I mean, I haven't been to every great golf course, but just with those towering pine trees. I mean, every step you walk, you think about something that you've seen in your mind or on television. It's just an amazing experience.
And as we were walking through up 13, Jim Nance was going by on the golf cart, so we got to see Jim Nance to really complete the experience.
Did he say hello, friend?
He did. Well, I think everybody kind of yelled at him, but he stopped and he was shaking hands and taking pictures with people, and really great guy.
Yeah, Jim's a very personable person for someone of his stature.
Absolutely, everybody is approachable. The other question I called you about was I wanted to get your quick read on so far the quarterback competition. I know it's early. We've only had really one scrimmage at Florida between Kyle. So far, Kyle Trask seems to be doing pretty well. Any read between him and Felipe Frank?
Yeah, we had Steve Spurrier on earlier, and I tried to get something out of him, but he did that one year, and I think he got in trouble for going ahead and declaring the starting quarterback. So he was Spurrier-esque in his evading of the question. I don't know how to call that one. I'm really glad to hear Trask doing so well, though.
Yeah, it's been surprising, but yeah, I think the coach has really been looking for accuracy, and I think that's what Trask. But I think he's mobile enough, and I think he's bringing a little bit more accuracy maybe than Felipe Franks. But it's early, and I guess we'll have to see what happens at the Orange and Blue game.
Well, first of all, I'm really glad to hear about your trip to Augusta. It's so exciting to hear somebody go there for the first time.
It was unbelievable. It was fantastic. I couldn't recommend it more, and hopefully I'll get to go back again because now I've got the correct game plan when I go back the second time.
No, thanks for the call, James. The only thing I would change about it is you go to the gift shop on the way out, so you don't have to lug the gifts around all day. Rusty in Santa Fe, Texas, you're on the air. Go right ahead.
Hey, Paul. Let me tell you, first off, it's an honor.
Thank you.
Been listening since I've been on hold. When I think of wrestling and WrestleMania, it goes a long way back to Paul Bosch, Andre the Giant, and Kamal the Ghanan Warrior here at the Coliseum in Houston. That was when I was a little kid. But and I've listened to John in Missouri must be off his rocker, thinking that UH and SMU even deserve to be in a power conference.
Yeah, Rusty, I don't think he quite understood that. Listen, I think I owe you a major apology, but we're out of time here on the show. We'll do it tomorrow. Appreciate you calling.
Thank you for listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast. The Paul Finebaum Show airs weekdays on the SEC Network, beginning at 3 Eastern.